Hi guys, and welcome to Tabletop Warden. Today's a special occasion because we have also a very special guest at our side, which is actually Mickey from Northern Realm Gaming. Hi Mickey.
Hello.
Feel free to introduce yourself.
Well, yeah. So I'm Mickey. You would have seen me maybe from the NRG streams, and probably doing lots of promotional work for Carlo for stats as well. Yeah, and it's nice to be here.
Nice to have you with us today, because which means myself and Yannick, of course. Hi Yannick.
Hi.
We will talk about all those fancy new reveals at the GenCon 2020, and I think it's fair to say straight up ahead that there are not many, cards that got revealed. There's one big fire-breathing card at the end, but that's actually it. But we still got a lot of new models, and we got a lot of new teasers, actually. Basically, Fabio and Michael described a lot of units, attachments, and also teased a couple of very new, interesting ones that we haven't even seen so far. So, Yannick, before we start actually getting into it, would you like to, or maybe Mickey as well, would you like to, talk a little bit about the guild maybe as well here at this point?
Yeah, for sure. For the guild, we are all in the guild. So Mickey's in the guild with NRG, and we are also as Tabletop Warden, and also a lot of other content creators who do amazing content, and we all work together to get better content for you guys. And the guild at all, it's just a group of us who also have a website where we put out on there, where we put our content on, and also we write articles and do guild drops. And if we're doing it right, the third guild drop should go live this day, and you can go to songoficeandfireguild.com, so ASOIF guild.com, and you can go to the drop page, and we will discuss our monthly topic there. And the guild drop is just one topic where we look at from different views. So we have videos, podcasts, articles, and stuff, all handling this one topic, and it's really amazing to work with the other guys and doing great content.
Definitely. I'm really looking forward to this next guild drop. I think it's going to be a big one, and it's also going to have some great information in there as well. So yeah, I think that's going to be absolutely fantastic. And obviously alongside that guild drop, the guild drop, I don't want to reveal the title too much, but it has something to do with tournaments. And of course, the stats site that we're on. The stats site that we run, that myself and Carlo run, A Song of Ice and Fire -stats.com, has just released its new builder as well. So that's A Song of Ice and Fire -stats.com/builder. And the idea behind this builder was that you can't make illegal lists for tournaments. We want to be able to release the pressure on TOs a little bit, because we've done it a lot. We've been sat looking at 200 lists, and we've had to check every single one to see if it's legal. And yeah, it's boring and it's a pain. So there's that tool that we've just released, and you were still doing a couple of bug fixes. We've got a competition going on to, if you can make an illegal list, you'll win a starter box. And I think we've just had this morning our third winner step forward, because Carlo can't code Jorah Penitent Betrayer. So yeah,
that's what
Carlo just can't code stuff that nobody likes.
That's true.
Can we just put it that way?
Yeah. You say that. I nearly built a list with Jorah Penitent Betrayer the other day, so I like it.
I also
so yeah,
love
anyway,
the Stone Draw, to be honest.
That's so cool. So yeah, get yourself on the site, get yourself building lists as well. You'll be able to save lists. We are going to be introducing some more functionality over the next kind of couple of weeks, as we feel happy with how it works, including a much better way of using your lists in relation to TTS. The user experience is what we're going for at the moment, and we are really, really, really wanting to improve the user experience from all angles, be that as a TO, be that as a player, be that as an observer. So yeah, check it out. I think hopefully in the next couple of days, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be looking at a fantastic tool, and hopefully it'll be used in all the big tournaments. Which is what it's about.
Sure.
And to be honest, as somebody who's already using it and tested a bit with it and knows something which is behind the curtain, I think it's a really great tool. And yeah, just test it out. Go to Asoiaf-Stats.com and go to the builder, and yeah.
Yeah, I like the builder a lot. I tested it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
We will put the links into the description of this video as well, so you guys can always just look down below and then click on the link and get to the site as straight ahead, and then save it into your favorites. I don't know, but please visit the guild site. Please visit Song of Ice via Stats, because people are putting a lot of effort into those sites, into this community project, and I think it's it's just awesome that the community is so engaged and that the content creators are trying to make this game grow, and just advertising it in every way possible. And I mean, Mickey and Carlo are organizing a lot of tournaments as well. So if you haven't played A Song of Ice and Fire on the tabletop simulator, please try it out, because it's also a very fun way to test your list, test new stuff. And actually, we were hoping to see a couple of new cards and their point costs, so that we could include them into the tabletop simulator and try them out. But you will see in a couple of minutes that turned out to be not the case, because this GenCon was quite special. Simon decided that they won't release or won't reveal a lot of unit cards, and not even point costs for anything. They basically decided to show off models and what will be included in the upcoming attachment boxes. And for those of you who don't know about the attachment boxes, basically every faction in the game will get a little box which will include alternative sculpts for already existing generic attachments and a couple of new ones, which we are very excited about, because there are some very cool options for different factions. I think especially we agreed on for the Baratheons and for the Night's Watch. There are very two unique ones in there. But as I said, there are no cards, there are no there are no stats. So all we are saying right now, take it with a big grain of salt, because we are basically just basing our opinion on what Michael and Fabio have said during the podcast. And I think that's always some subjects to change. I think they even changed, for example, the name of one of the attachment.
Yeah, we'll get onto that later, won't we?
Exactly. I mean, the last time they showed this attachment, it's the
Clegane Butcher?
No, the Dragonstone Noble, actually, who was before the Lord of Dragonstone, which they decided to change for some narrative reasons, I guess, which was kind of awkward to me, but I mean, it makes sense. It doesn't change the fact that he's still kind of awesome. So yeah, I would say let's start in the order we have seen the slides and the attachment boxes in the stream revealed. So we will start off with the Lannisters. The Lannisters in their attachment box will include an alternative sculpt for the Guard Captain, the Souled Veteran, and the Champion of the Faith. And then we will get 3 new attachments, which are the Sentinel Enforcer, the Clegane Butcher, and the Turncoat. I think it's fair to say that we already know what every single one of those attachments is supposed to do. They basically revealed them at some point here and there, and they showed off the Clegane Butcher as well in the previous showcase. So not a bunch of surprises here, but I have to say I love the alternative sculpts. I personally think that the Salt Veteran looks incredibly cool, and the guy to the far right, which we can also start to speculate here, is the Sentinel Enforcer, or what do you guys think?
I think he might be. I don't know from my perspective, and it helps if you've got the image in front of you. But obviously, the turncoat is definitely going to be the guy who looks like he's grabbing a coin out of his hand.
Yeah.
On the far left of the image, the alternative guard captain has got to be the guy with the sword in the air and the Lannister lion on his shield, almost certainly. He's by far the best sculpt, by the way, in my opinion. He looks like he actually looks awesome. Even though it's a very simple model, I think he looks really good. The Assault Veteran's definitely the guy with the big kick-off halberd. He does look awesome as well.
Yeah.
Then I think the Champion of the Faith has got to be the guy wearing the helmet. It's a very Champion of the Faith-esque helmet, meaning that the Sentinel Enforcer is the guy raising his shield. He's an odd one because he doesn't really fit with the aesthetic of any of the units currently out there.
Yes.
He obviously the synergies. In case you're not aware of what the rules are for the Sentinel Enforcer, we believe that he gives taunt. Do a morale test within short range. If you fail, you have to charge this unit if able. The question for a lot of us is he obviously fits quite well in a unit of halberds, but he doesn't really fit the aesthetic of a halberd unit that much.
Yes. Exactly.
So I don't know if this is like a little call out to maybe another unit that might be coming out for Lannisters, or maybe he's just an alternative option for the Lannisters to choose from. I don't know.
Yeah, I personally think the same way. The first time I have seen him, I was like, he doesn't look like anything we have for the Lannisters at this point. And based on his weird taunt ability, which we already have seen at the Fen Warriors, and this ability is kind of awkward in that it doesn't work all the time. But I think this guy might be a part of a unit that, is based on the Lannisters, I forgot the English name of the guys. They're called Goldröcke in Deutsch.
Goldcloaks.
The Goldcloaks, yeah.
Goldcloaks, yeah, exactly. This is a unit it's not in the game right now, and it's a very famous Lannister unit, actually. And he has a very fancy armor. Like, he doesn't look like a, just a basic soldier or something like that. He looks like I don't even know, a little bit like someone out of Mordor. Like, his unit is so spiky and so it's weird designed. It looks straight up evil. They even said that this new attachment box is supposed to make look the Lannisters a little bit more devious and evil, and this guy fits this theme very much, actually.
Yeah, to be honest, all of the sculpts, maybe except of the Champion of the Faith, are looking more evil and devious than the sculpts we have before. Especially the Assault Veteran. He just looks like he's straight up killing a guy in front of him.
Yeah, right. I have to admit, I love what they've done with him. Not from a feel perspective necessarily.
Yeah.
But when I look at that render, when I look at that image, that halberd looks really big. Like that.
Yeah, it's huge.
It looks bigger than the halberdiers already have. I'm looking at that thinking, I don't want to be on the end of that thing. But yeah, I think it's a good box. Good box.
Yeah. So based on informations we got ahead, we know what the Sentinel Enforcer will probably do, which is what you explained is the taunt ability. We already know what the turncoat will do. Yannick, you can go ahead and explain that one.
As far as we know, it's an attachment that can go to an enemy unit. So it's like Jaime Lannister, the maimed hostage, or the Stark version of Juggernaut. And he has the ability once per game at the start of any turn, your opponent may deal this unit 1 wound by removing this model, and if they do, the unit gains 1 condition token and may not use orders or be targeted of friendly tactic cards this turn. This one was spoiled by Michael at one of his own podcasts. So, yeah.
He also posted up on the main group, I believe.
Yeah, true. True.
Yeah. After that podcast went live.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, what do you guys think about this attachment? Go ahead, Mickey.
That's what I think. I just kind of think, I think he's good. Like, don't get me wrong. I think he's good, and I think there's a place. And if anyone wanted an attachment like this that you could take multiple times, it was definitely Lannisters, right?
Sure.
You know, the idea that they rule by coin, that they hire mercenaries, that they're a bit devious. So all of these themes really fit. So I think thematically, this is perfect.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I love this aspect as well. Yeah, you're right.
I guess the issue for me is that at 2 points, is it worth it? And I think against some units it probably is. I think it's absolutely fantastic if you're playing against a Stark player, where you can shut down a unit of Berserkers when you think they're going to make these big charges, because they can't play like Devastating Impact, Winter is Coming, and things like that. And it buys you. I think you're going to see 1 or 2 of these in Lannisters lists, maybe just the one, that just buys you that extra turn from that Alpha Strike that we see. And that can be enough to swing a game enough, you know, if that unit comes in a turn late. Especially, and this is the big thing, especially if it disrupts where a unit has already come in, and this is the second unit coming in to support, and all of a sudden it just stands there around going, oh, hang on, we're not allowed to attack these cards.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
This is a 6+ charge. I don't feel happy about this. So yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, I think what is really important with turncoat is that you need to have an awareness on how the state of the game is. So maybe it's not that beginner friendly, I would guess, because you need to know what your opponent wants to do, and you need to know what your weaknesses are and how your opponent can exploit this. And if your opponent knows the game to a certain extent, he knows how he can exploit your weaknesses, and that's maybe some defense against it, but also it can be used offensively, because if your opponent gains some condition token, which is great, to just get more damage out. And also if you're playing against a defensive faction or playing against a unit that has a defensive ability, like the Shield War from the Taliesin Shields, these are abilities that hinders you to punch through the unit, and I think he's also great to just gets you the opening and gets more pressure on your opponent.
I can 100% see this being used against Baratheons, actually.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Charge.
This was my first thought, yeah.
Even if you use it on the start of a Baratheon's turn, where they've been in combat for a round, which is more likely with the Lannisters. You know, Lannisters are more likely of all the factions to be in combat with Baratheons for multiple turns, because they don't hit hard themselves. You know, you've got high armors on both sides. So Baratheons like that, and then they're going to really capitalize on that. But imagine that, you know, they go, right, I'm going to pop this on my unit of Rose Knights, and I'm going to heal up loads. And you go, actually, there's a turncoat in that unit, and I'm going to use it now, and rip that unit of those Rose Knights. And they sit there, they don't get the healing that they need from something like Stag's Resilience, and then they're sad. And you just kill them
and stuff like this.
I think the easiest example would be like your Lance Cavalry, your Knights of Castle Rock are about to charge a unit of enemy wardens, and they have a Master Warden in there. That's the perfect case. Just shut down this Master Warden, can't be targeted by Ours is the Fury. This is just amazing. I think also that the turncoat might be very good against defensive factions. He might be a little bit difficult to use against offensive factions, because you have basically to try to predict what the enemy will do in this turn, which is difficult at times. But a capable player, I personally think that he's very dependent on the skill of the player who's using him. Like, he's going to be a very difficult attachment to kind of use. But if people figure him out when the right timing for his usage, I think he's gonna be a very strong attachment. Actually, I know people are like, he's 2 points, which is expensive in the common meta right now, and I know that as well. But this ability is so unique that it might see a lot of play. I like the idea behind him, and I also love it thematically because it's just amazing. It's just amazingly done. I think this is also the second attachment we got actually in the game. The third one, right? That we can put into an enemy unit. We have Jaime the Maimed Hostage, which is still not officially released, and we have Juggernaut Hagar for the Starks.
Yeah.
So this is actually one thing I did want to bring up. You've got to look, and I know that Jaime Maimed Hostage is technically a Kickstarter exclusive, and so as a result, he doesn't actually see much play because half the time he's not even allowed to be taken.
Yeah.
But even in the options where he is allowed to be taken, he isn't picked. Like, and Jaqen H'ghar is something that anyone is allowed to pick as long as you've got Arya in the list, and Arya is in nearly every Stark list. Let's face it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get picked that often. Like his pick rate is, from what we've observed so far, is quite low. So, yes, you've now got an attachment that does that, and you don't have to have the requirements. But these styles of attachments are not popular. So I don't know if this is going to be one of those ones where 1 or 2 players who really understand Lannisters and understand the meta are going to pick it. Or if it just gets filtered out by the fact that unfortunately the meta at the moment is all about activations. Yeah.
But I think that's a topic. That's a huge topic that we won't tackle in this podcast because it's just this meta talk is it has its own problems right now, and
we don't want to go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah. But you're right, Mickey. You're totally right. Yeah,
that's a shame.
Yeah,
I think he's cool.
Yeah, that there's so many cool abilities in the game overall, which doesn't get picked. Sometimes for reasons, sometimes because just the meta not favors them. And I want to play it all.
yeah. Maybe we will get at this point sometime in the future, but who knows? Let's jump ahead to the last attachment that we got here that got spoiled already at the previous showcase, which is the Clegane Butcher. He's an attachment for cavalry units, and he brings to the table, let me see here, Spread Fear and Weaken Resolve, right? That's the 2 abilities.
So I believe when he was actually originally spoiled a long time ago, they actually changed him when they did the reveal stream, Simon's reveal stream, about a month and a half ago now. So he did change, I think. So he used to do some really cool things, and now he basically gives out panic tokens and weak tokens.
I think he still have Weakened Resolve, but it's not Spread Fears. It's called something different.
Yes. Right. Something different.
I look at it and think for 2 points, because he is 2 points. We know that.
Yes.
I find it hard to justify why Knights of Castle Rock need that, because it doesn't make their explosive damage any bigger, because it doesn't affect their own unit on the charge really. It's more of a defensive thing where I can make that unit over there do something, and the unit I'm attacking is weakened, but it doesn't matter if they're weakened if they're dead. So, like, from my perspective, is that the unit it goes in is an Alpha Strike unit that wants to be, and it is one of the units in the game that has a very good chance of eliminating a unit from the board in one attack. And you're giving it an attachment for 2 points that does this idea of longevity. But if Knights of Castle Rock are in longevity, you've already failed.
Yeah.
I just don't. The synergy's just not there, and he doesn't even take the Clegane keyword across to the Knights of Castle Rock, meaning all of the Mountains cards don't get the extra buff on them. So,
based on that, go ahead, Yannick. Go ahead.
Something what we maybe should consider is that most of the attachments will come separately in their own unit boxes somewhere later. It's not sure when they will come. It's even not sure when the attachment boxes will get released, but most of the units of the attachments will have their own units. So maybe that's a hint, because he doesn't fit in something we have already. He's maybe fits
Maybe.
in something which comes in the future, which
Yes.
is amazing, I guess.
That's
There's
personal.
There's
Yeah,
no
go ahead.
rule that Simon will do that, though. There's no rule that Simon will actually do that, and we could be sitting here waiting for Clegane Cavalry for some time.
Yeah.
And that is-
you're right.
That's
Yeah,
the problem, actually.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
that
but
right now he doesn't look good, and if there is something coming out down the line that would be amazing, we don't know about it. So
it's a no for you for now.
yeah.
It's just speculation, but I also think that this guy might be a hind at a second cavalry unit for the Lannisters. I personally think that he's the reason to include a vicious-based cavalry in your Lannister army without the need to include flayed men. Like, he's gonna be an alternative that is not as tanky as the flayed men. But I could see a Clegane, cavalry maybe at 7 points, something like that. It's for 4+ defense, but they got vicious all the time, like the old flayed men got. And if you include this guy into such a unit, they become a shock-based cavalry, just with the vicious aspect going for them, the panic aspect. And they can also provide a lot of tokens around on the battlefield. So I could potentially see here a new cavalry unit coming for the Lannisters. Because right now, Lannisters and their panic playstyle doesn't work. It's just fair to say that most of the times their entire aspect of panicking enemies isn't working out as it should be. Therefore, we see a lot of High Sparrow lists, a lot of Knights of Castle Rock lists, which are more about being tanky, about having those big charges with their cuffs. But I mean, we don't see a lot of Gregor actually anymore. He was very prominent in 1.4 and even in 1.5. But right now he doesn't see a lot of play because Mountainsmen are not as good as they were back then. Totally a case of the meta as well.
It's not that the Mountainsmen changed, it's just the surrounding changed.
Exactly. And I think if they got a cavalry unit out there with the Clegane keyword attached to them, then we will maybe even see Gregor coming back. I would love to actually see him coming back because I think he's a great commander and he's very fun to play as well.
Yeah.
But these are my reasons why I think that there will be a cavalry coming out in the future based on the House Clegane. Therefore, we don't see the Clegane keyword on this attachment, because if you put this guy into the Knights of Castle Rock and in combination with Gregor's cards, that would be insane. That would be just bonkers. Like, overrun on such a unit is already so strong, but then having critical blow on a 5+ and +2 additional dice. Jesus, I think that's the entire reason they haven't included the keyword onto this guy.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, that's all just speculation. So guys, if you have your own opinions about all this attachments, feel free to post a comment down below and just say what you personally think about them and what you think will be coming out in the future. Okay, we have talked about the Lannisters quite a lot, so let's skip forward to the Stark Attachment Box. And in the Stark Attachment Box, we will have an alternative sculpt for the Swansword Captain, the Umber Champion, which looks amazing, the Clegane Warden, and we have 3 new attachments, which are the Mormont Veteran, the Clegane Survivalist, and the Winterfell Guardian. And yeah, guys, go ahead.
We already know what the Mormont Veteran does, and meh. It was okay. Like, we saw it come out. It was okay. Was it like 2 points? I think.
1 point.
1 point.
1 point, and it gives Harden. Harden says after you roll defense dice, you block 1 hit.
Yeah.
And I think 1 hit per destroyed rank.
Yeah.
Additionally, so at last rank you block 3 hits after defense dice are rolled. So you kind of blocking hits with the Mormont Veteran, which is great, but it's
It's one of those cases where the unit that she's supposed to be in there is missing right now. I think we are not seeing the whole picture here. Just
yeah. To
So I
be
think
honest,
there's another huge thing that matters here as well. It's not just that the unit is missing.
yeah,
Starks do not have points for random attachments.
kind of, yeah.
you are getting back into that meta talk.
I am, but like, my point is that you see Mira Reed, you see
Yeah, well, you're right. Yeah,
Bran, you see all these other things picked up because they're good. Is this
Yep.
good?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. But when all of the characters are being picked up, I just don't see how this quite fits in. I think it will be good, and to be honest, I think this will be superb in a currently existing unit in the Tully Sworn Shields.
Yeah.
Because you
Oh,
could, in theory, on their last rank, you could block 6 hits.
Yeah, they will never die. Like,
no. You need to make sure that it's these 3 hits before you roll defense dice and 3 hits, up to 3 hits after you roll defense dice. So after you roll defense dice, if you then block hits, these blocked hits are way more worth than they are before you roll defense dice because they are wounds you block.
Yeah, you're effectively
Kind of.
blocking wounds.
yeah.
So is this good? Yeah, definitely. It's going to see play. Maybe. Would I love to see this in literally any other army? Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Like, this kind of thing shouldn't
True.
exist in Starks. I don't know why Starks get to have another defensive mechanism that they can add to a unit when things like Starks. Like, what gets me is that currently, and I know Baratheons aren't fleshed out much, but Baratheons are meant to be stronger on the weaker ranks, certainly on like the side of Stannis.
Mhm.
Like, they're not meant to have that fall off. And yet one of the best units one of the best units that's going to be available to you is a unit of Stark Sworn Swords with a Mormont Veteran on with 1 rank left. Because you can just Stark Fury for free, and then you basically don't take any wounds from it, and you're going to take less wounds from the attacks back. Like, that's just better, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, I personally, I mean, they teased the Mormonts in the previous showcase as well a little bit. They said that Mormonts will be a army that is all about sustained combat. They're gonna have some defensive mechanisms, but not like the Tullys, who are all about blocking stuff with their heavy shields and their armor. So I guess Mormonts will be more like, we will lose a couple of wounds here and there, but we will have, maybe, for example, I could imagine an infantry unit having 7 dice in all ranks. Like, it doesn't matter how many wounds they got, they're always fighting at their maximum efficiency. And I would love to play something like that, but you're totally right. I think I would love to see such an army or such a concept in a different faction. Like, this hardened ability is like the perfect example for a Baratheon ability that would be just mwah, chef's kiss. Like, it would be just awesome. I think also that the reason they have included like this new defensive alternative to the Tullys into the Starks is because they don't want to include even more offensive stuff into this army. Like, this army is already so aggressive. Like, if you put even more stuff in there and more options for the enemy, for the players in this regard, this army becomes very much bloated with all those offensive options. So they have to go into a different aspect here and try to find an alternative play style, which is supposed to be this sustained combat one. And I'm actually looking forward to it because I personally think, that's my personal opinion, the Mormont Veteran looks for me, she's the coolest sculpt out of all of this. Like, I love her. I love her design with like the eye patch and the spear. What is it called? Fell, right? It's just Fell. She's wearing. She looks amazing, and I just can't wait to see the Mormont units actually coming to the table and what they will provide to the Starks. But yeah, go ahead, Mickey.
I was just about to say, you say the sculpts there. The Sworn Sword Captain actually is a very basic sculpt. And when I say basic, as in like the pose is fairly basic, there's nothing really going on. But there's something about it, and I don't know if it's the chainmail that's being done quite well or what. There's something about that alternative Sworn Sword Captain sculpt that I just really like. It might be because it's just super simple, but effective.
Yeah, sure.
The Umber Champion I think is hilarious because I looked at that first time I looked at it, and if people don't know, I play a lot of Free Folk.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and I was like, hang on, is that Harmer?
True. Yeah, actually, yeah, he looks very similar, right?
Basically the same pose. Like,
yeah, true.
No, I think Hammer's more of a marching forward pose.
yeah,
he's
yeah,
more
okay,
standing on top of a hill, praying to the gods, to the old gods for a good battle or something like this.
But yeah, they're very similar. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Actually, the first, I mean, he looks like a Warhammer Fantasy miniature as well. Like
he does.
He has this aesthetic of a, I don't know, maybe a Chaos Berserker or Warrior. He even has like runes on his axes, and yeah, he's very over the top if you compare him to everyone else.
There's only the skull missing, you say.
Yeah, exactly. Like he needs to wear like a spiked helmet and some skulls, and he's ready to go.
Yeah. Something before we get to the other attachments, something I want to add to the Moment Veteran, because maybe it sounded like we have touched it a little bit. I think the Moment Veteran is a attachment which is really great, and I think the Moment Veteran and a lot of Stark attachments just waiting to the moment that the direwolves get nerfed, and then there will be much more diversity in the faction.
Yeah.
And I think if we consider direwolves not being that strong like they are now, I think the Moment Veteran is a really cool choice.
Yeah.
That was just my 2 cents to this topic.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Okay, guys, so we are getting into a heavy speculation zone here because we don't know nothing about this guy. We have the Cranachman Survivalist, which is, and this is also a very interesting thing, who of these two guys is the Cranachman Survivalist and who is the alternative Cranachman Warden? So we have 2 Cranachman to the right. What is your guess, guys? Who is the Survivalist in here?
I reckon I labeled these at the time when I was looking at these, and I reckon the Survivalist is the far right. The Warden, the spear of the Warden, and like the frog, like the frogman idea, frog spears. Yeah, that is very much like the Warden's like current aesthetic a little bit. So I think it doesn't break too much away from that. A different sculpt, but it's a similar aesthetic. I think the Survivalist with the pack and the the sword and the axe. I think this brings a more survivalist approach to it. You know, he's a bit grizzled. He's a bit hard. He knows how to live in a harsh condition, kind of thing.
Yeah. Also, he has a bed backpack with something where he can sleep on, I guess.
Yeah.
So
in terms of what he does, maybe he spitballing here. Maybe he just restores wounds or something like that. You know, is a basic thing, or maybe he gives like a plus to morale even, or something silly like that. I think it's going to be something in theme with his name, something that makes the unit he's in just maybe a little bit more tanky or a little bit more survivable.
I personally think that he might. This is my interpretation of the survivalist aspect, that he will bring Pathfinder to a unit because he is all about guiding stuff throughout the wilderness, and he knows his way around, in the woods and stuff like that. I could see him giving +1, like, oh Jesus, like imagine a unit in Starks with +1 to speed and ignoring terrain, like. The moment I was like suggesting that, I was like, no, please don't.
I can definitely see that. I agree with what you said in terms of like that design space, but I also agree with what you just said there about it being crazy good.
To be honest, I think the general direction we are heading at the moment is that he down buffs your unit offensively, but he gets some kind of a buff.
Yeah, some utility stuff. Yeah,
some utility stuff, which, to be honest, sometimes is way more powerful than straight up damage. And, and that's often overlooked. by some players, and utility is sometimes just the better currency, I would say, to get. And yeah, if you know how you get the utility at the right time, at the right time, at the right place to work, it's just great, I guess.
So I guess it's also fair to say that he will bring the Krennicman keyword to the unit he's in. So Howland Reed got more options for his cards, which is kind of awesome. I think he doesn't need even more options because he's already extremely strong. But there you go, fellas.
He's commander, to be honest.
Yeah, totally. But his cards are also amazing. They're just great.
Yeah.
But I also loved Miki's idea about healing stuff. Like I would love to see them going in a more creative way about him, because they already started to pull out all those very crazy attachment, very crazy NCU options. And I would love to see him, like, for example, healing wounds only if he's in short range of difficult terrain, something like that. Like he's trying to pick herbs in those woods. I don't know, something along the lines. Like, try to be more creative with your abilities. Don't try to just copy pasta everything here and there. I think, for example, Pathfinder, as much as I would love to see that, would love to see this ability on him. We got Pathfinder actually quite a lot in this game already. So I really hope that it will bring something very unique to the table with him. I'd love to see more creative abilities, and maybe even new abilities. Just we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows? That's just heavy speculation zone here. So time will tell. But I think the most interesting aspect about this attachment box is the cavalry attachment that we got here, the Winterfell Guardian. And we don't have a lot of information about this guy. Basically none. They haven't even said if this guy will be in solo variation or if he's gonna be just straight up an attachment for cavalry. What his abilities are or his point costs, we don't know anything about him. But the fact that Starks are getting now a cavalry attachment is already interesting enough. So, guys, what's your interpretation of the Winterfell Guardian?
I'll try and explain this one quickly. And it is going to be a bit meta related. I'm sorry. But right now, we look at the Outriders. The Outriders are very good for their cost. The Outriders are considered one of the best units at their points cost. What 1 point attachment could you add to the Outriders that's worth it to make them better, that they will actually need because they're already very good?
Yeah.
So the ability has to be very good for 1 point to be worth taking in Outriders. Which brings me on to the second problem. If the ability is really good and it's worth 1 point, then it will be taken in Tully Cavaliers.
Yeah, true.
That's a bad
true.
thing.
Yeah.
You say that the units are just too good that they need to be buffed.
It's almost like the attachment needs to be 2 points, and unfortunately, although I think it could be awesome and I think it could be really effective, I think no one will pick it at 2 points because I just don't see why you would.
Yeah.
Unless it's themed, and so it perhaps wouldn't be as good in one unit, but is good in the other one. And I think there's some benefits there. I don't know. I spend inherently, I think it's a defensive thing. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about it, but that's my general feel on it so far, is that I don't think this is going to be played, unfortunately.
You're totally right here. The fact that Starks have already systems for the cavalry just means that whatever you add on top of that would make them just, hilariously overpowered, or this attachment will be just straight up like bad. Like I don't even know how they're going to approach this balance aspect for the Starks, but maybe it's just another utility ability, which would be okay. Like maybe not even adding to the unit's defense, not even adding to their offense. Maybe more like, I don't know, giving them some options to perform a free thing like that. Like I was thinking about Watcher on the Wall, but like an order for this attachment.
So we were talking about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But the Harmer attachment, where you do it and then a unit within short range can do a free maneuver in order.
Yeah.
If that is the attachment for the cavalry and that's a point, like I agree that is 100% balanced, because the unit itself is not getting a buff. It's buffing the things around it, and the buff that it's giving you in terms of the extra movement is not amazing, but of course movement actually is how you win the game. The game is all about movement, really. So it's definitely a valuable thing to take. And in terms of, is that something you would take for 1 point? Definitely, it's already been taken in free folk lists with Harmer.
Yeah.
And Stark want to be moving faster,
But to be honest, Starks have the best options to move fast over the battlefield.
Oh, they already do, yeah.
I don't know if they need an extra option.
Yeah, that's exactly what that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's just like how are they going to approach this one? Like, this is going to be tough. Like I'm very curious to see what this guy will bring to the unit that he's in.
But to be honest, what the one word which stuck to my mind was versatility, and Fabio said that the Winterfell Guardian brings some versatility in Stark armies, and I'm really curious because it's just that sentence what he said, and then he said, yeah, also the Sculpt looks cool. So
yeah. But
they're
maybe
teasing us a little bit too much, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I could like I said, like he could just simply have a basic utility ability and that's it. Like maybe even allowing the unit that he's in to ignore weakened tokens or something along the lines. Like, but still, like everything, just whatever I came up with sounds like overpowered on a unit of Outriders. Like it's.
You need just to play Starks, and then it's all perfect.
Like even the minors of abilities that I can think of is just like that would be way too strong. Like it's.
This is one I think in terms of like getting any understanding of where this will go and what this will be like.
Yeah.
You need to have some rules burnt for it. Like the survivalist, you don't need to have rules burnt for it because I think you can imagine how that's going to fit in.
Yeah, totally.
But this like this could be literally anything.
Yeah.
And until we know exactly like anything about it, we won't be able to judge it even remotely fairly, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult. It's really difficult.
True.
He's just a 3-point mounted behemoth attachment.
Oh God.
No,
thank you. So let's jump forward here. Yeah, we got next up the Baratheon Attachment Box. Okay, in here we got an alternative sculpt for the Stag Knight Noble, the Master Warden, the Red Priestess, and then we got the Highgarden Pikeman Captain, Thorn Guard Sentinel, and the Dragonstone Noble, which got changed from the Lord of Dragonstone. So yeah, I think the most obvious thing for me in here was Highgarden Pikeman, Captain. That sounds like a unit to me that is coming. So
yes.
Michael was very obvious. Yeah,
Michael actually said that pretty much. If you look at these names, you might be able to guess at one of the units that's coming out.
Exactly. Then we got Thorn Guard Sentinel. Thorn Guard, yes, another unit here. So we got basically 2 new units for Stannis and for Renly spoiled. Basically 1 unit for Stannis, 1 unit for Renly, the Thorn Guard and the Highgarden Pikeman. And we got the representative attachment. Yeah, go ahead, Mickey.
The Thorn Guard is going to be Renly.
Yes.
And the Highgarden.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I got mixed it up. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so the Red Priestess Stannis and the Lord of Dragonstone, or Dragonstone Noble as he's now called, which is a shame because everyone loved the Lord of D, and now
yeah, man.
D Noble.
Oh man.
but De Noble is
Noble.
obviously Stannis as well. I'm a bit disappointed actually in this box for one
okay.
reason, and for one reason only.
Okay.
The attachment box is coming out super early, and they have effectively spoiled the units for some of these attachments.
Yeah.
But we have literally no concept of whether or not these units are going to be coming out even remotely soon.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you know, you buy a box of Wardens. I don't actually know this, but if you buy a box of Wardens, you get a Master Warden in the box, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you buy a unit of Highgarden Pikeman, are you saying you won't get a Highgarden Pike Captain in the box?
No, we don't know.
No.
We simply don't know.
So I think the issue for me here is that in the future when these units come out, this attachment box might only be there for the Dragonstone Noble.
Yeah,
Huh.
that sucks.
And you only get one of them in the box.
I see where you're coming from. Yeah, okay.
But to be honest, if you like to play Stannis, but you don't like the Faithful because of various reasons, too expensive, die too quickly, stuff like this, but you want to play Red Priestess, which I personally think is really good,
Yeah,
then this box is perfect for you.
I agree. I think this box benefits Stannis' side more than it does Renly, but it benefits Renly more now. I think in the future it'll be more Stannis based, and I'm a bit disappointed because overall I look at this box and I know it's the same number of attachments that we saw in the Lannister and the same number of attachments we saw in the Starks. So overall it's completely fair. But actually that's why I'm disappointed, because Baratheons are so far behind what the Lannisters and Starks are at the moment that what I see from them is saying, we're not actually going to increase the rate at which we get things out for the Baratheons. We're just going to give everything out at the same rate. And basically what this means is they'll eternally be behind.
Yeah.
And from a balance perspective, that's not good if they're always going to be 2 or 3 releases behind the Starks and Lannisters.
I don't know. I have to disagree on this one because I think you're looking very pessimistic at all of this. Because I personally was like, the first time I saw this, I was like, hey, those guys are getting 2 new units. Like, cool. Like, I haven't heard about the Thorn Guard before. I have to look it up. And I personally think that the sculpt for him also looks amazing. Like, he looks like an assassin, some sort of, which is kind of very cool.
I actually think he looks exactly like the R'hllor Faithful sculpt.
Yeah, kinda.
It's basically the same pose. He just has a hood.
It just looks, for me, the first thing I thought was the guys in the woods of from Gondor and Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I know what you mean, the Rangers. Yeah,
the Rangers. Yeah, who are hunting the orcs. And I thought exactly he's
one of the Dunedain. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think he looks like amazing. And the first thing that came to my mind is 2 new units for the Baratheons. Yeah, that's awesome. But I totally understand where you are coming from, Mickey. That Baratheons are behind Starks and Lannisters. But to be fair, those are they exist for 2 years now, even over 2 years, and we don't actually know about the release policy right now of Simon. Maybe they are we are gathering all our resources, and as soon as this COVID situation is over, we're going to drop the hammer, literally, for the Baratheons. We're going to release a bunch of units in a short amount of time, and maybe that will solve the problem.
I think that, though, is kind of where, that's kind of where my problems lie, is that we don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're not being very open with telling us.
That's true. That's also true. Yeah.
We know that these we've been spoiled. Nearly all of the attachment boxes we know are coming out. We've looked at them. We can speculate on them. We still have literally no concept about when this is being released.
That's true. Yeah. You're totally right there. That's one of the aspects actually that I was thinking about as well. Yeah.
This could be Christmas next year when this gets released.
Yes, maybe even next year or something like that. Who knows?
To be honest, they said especially under Dragonstone Noble, that they only changed his name because they had time because of COVID.
Yeah.
So if COVID wasn't happening, this stuff would be in production so it would come out now or in a few months. So it
I hope
just
so.
got pushed a bit back. So I think at the end, I think that the attachment boxes are releases which lies in the near future and not in the distant future.
Yeah, I hope so as well. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think the attachment box are very likely to be one of the next stuff which
yeah.
comes out besides the Unsullied,
Greyjoys.
and
Yeah.
I think Greyjoys will come after them, to be
All
honest.
right, well.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, that's basically my hope as well, that they're like, they know about their release policy so far, and they're trying to change this as much as they can, like trying to have this constant release plan, trying to drop multiple units maybe in a short amount of time. Like they said for the Greyjoys, for example, which we come to later, that they will try to have this new style of releases where they will release a starter box, 2 units, the heroes box, and all at the same time, so that players don't have to, buy a starter box and then wait for multiple months until they can get, something new. Like, I think the best example was the Baratheon starter box, which was, let's say, not so good, in mildly, said.
Well, I'll bring up Free Folk as well. Same case.
Yeah,
Free Folk
exactly.
But at least
virtually
you could
unplayable.
spam the starter box.
And then you had
And
to,
you had at
yeah,
least
totally.
a decent
Yeah.
army, and it's not the case with.
And then you had to wait like multiple months until you even can buy some. I think the first unit was like wardens for the Baratheons, which I was like, huh? Why?
They
Why
already
wardens?
got 4 of them.
Like this was the weirdest decision ever. Like wardens, and they were so late.
Am I right in saying you still can't even buy Sentinels?
Yeah. It's just kind of it's very awkward. It's very strange, and I think at this point there were maybe already in concepting this new release policy, and they were like, okay, we need to release something for the Baratheons here, so this faction can actually be played. Like as soon as those heroes boxes dropped, like this changed everything for the Baratheons. They became basically a very competitive, faction just with those 2 boxes. And people tested out, a lot of new options on the tabletop simulator and realized that the Baratheons right now could be among the strongest factions that we have in the game. But that's just, personal interpretation. And what I'm just trying to say here is that they know about the current state of the game. And they know that, for example, Baratheons right now in a shitty position, like in a physical version of the game. And they're just trying to, compensate for all of this with a big release drop. Like, here you go, guys. Here you got the Sentinels. You got the Stag Knights. Yeah, okay, those are not so good. But the champions of the Stag as well. Here you go. The Rose Knights, which are amazing. So just ridiculously good. And Raylo Faithful, all in a short amount of time, so that you can finally, go ahead and play this faction to its maximum capacities and its potential. Yeah, that's just my personal interpretation of all this release stuff. So I really hope that they take their time a little bit more, but not too much, because I really want to see at the end of the year some new stuff released. Like I'm gonna be honest here. So
definitely, I think if they're releasing the attachment boxes this year, I would like to see the Highgarden Pikeman, which we think are definitely a unit pretty much. I'd love to see those be coming out towards the start of next year at the latest. Ideally, I wouldn't like to see them coming out any later than that.
Yeah.
The Thorn Guard, I think, going back to actually like what they could be, I think they're going to be quite an aggressive unit, like potentially a movement 5 unit for the Renly side.
Oh wow,
a little bit more aggressive. The idea of Thorn Guard, like you've got the Rose Knights, but Thorn Guard, slightly lighter, slightly more kind of like punchy. Don't know if they're going to have what kind of effects they're going to have, obviously. But I think those would be quite cool as a unit. And yeah, I think the Lord of Dragonstone, or the Dragonstone Noble, which we already know a little bit about, we have to wait until we see some more rules from him to work out if he's actually good. Because we know he's a solo, right?
Yes.
He's a solo, and also you can take him as an attachment.
And the
Yes.
attachment's really actually quite good for Baratheons, I think.
Definitely, yeah.
But the solo, I think the solo is actually what Stannis needs more. So we have to wait till we see what
Yeah.
that does, really.
Yeah.
To the Dragonstone noble, he got spoiled at the last expo, but his attachment is subject to change. So you need to be a bit more careful with this. He's 1 point and has loyalty standards Baratheon. And also you can only take 2 Dragonstone nobles. And he has had the order Sentinel after another friendly unit within long range is attacked. This unit may make a free charge or maneuver action. If charging, it must target the attacking enemy, which I think is really cool, especially when you combine this with a more aggressive cavalry option like the Flatemen. Yeah, some guys will say, yeah, Yannick, Flatemen are just underwhelming and bad.
I actually think, like, on that point though, looking at neutrals, this is one of the only times where I think Bloody Mama Zorse Riders actually suddenly become quite an interesting choice.
Yeah.
For the Baratheons at the moment. So
yeah, true. There you need to be a bit more careful that they don't die. But
yeah.
to be honest, I personally prefer Flatemen most of the times because they got nerfed. Yes, I know this, but they still have a decent damage output on the charge, and if they can do a free charge action without the need of you playing counter charge, I think that's great. And also, if you can just make a maneuver action, bring them into position that you can charge the flank or maybe the rear with your free maneuver at the start of your action. That's great. And I think if he gets released like this, he's a really great 1 point attachment.
Yeah, sure. So so basically we don't know much about the Pikeman and the Thorn Guard Sentinel. They're totally up to interpretation what they could provide to the unit they're in. Like I was thinking about the Highgarden Pikeman. First thing that came to my mind is like the Highgarden Pikeman. Maybe they have as well set for charge.
I can imagine them, like being a bit like the Halberdiers.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was like, okay, what could a Highgarden Pikeman captain provide to this unit? Like, what would be their generic attachment? First thing that came to my mind was, of course, hold the line. But it's kind of awkward because Baratheons already got this ability as one of their tactic cards. And thinking about Baratheons in a whole, like this would make them extremely strong. Like you could put this guy into a unit of wardens and they would become like a powerhouse unit. It's kind of hard to think of an ability that would not make that is defensive, but would not make Baratheons too strong. Like they're all about retribution. They're all about hitting you back hard. All about this grindy combat. So maybe he even got something totally new, like we haven't seen before. But who knows?
Yeah. The problem is, like you said, if you have something that boosts your attack, if you're engaged, like the Sword Veteran from the Lannister does, it would make Baratheons too powerful. And if you have something defensive, if you combine this with just an defensive unit and the cards and so on, it makes the unit unkillable. And also set for charge, which you also suggested, is something which I say, no, definitely not, because then you could make an attack before.
Yes, and afterwards.
Before you get attacked, afterwards with our Fury, and if you die, you can just play Last Stand and counter charge. So,
there are a lot of possibilities there. Yeah, you're totally right.
So,
go ahead. Sorry.
So it's really difficult, and also if you would heal something like this, it would just synergize extremely well with the Rose Knights. So there are a lot of options which are very unlikely, but which would fit him. And I think that's the problem.
I think that's the entire problem of the Baratheons in a whole. Like this army is all about defensive stuff, right? but as soon as you add some defensive abilities on top of them, they're getting ridiculously strong. Like if you think about the Mormont veteran we talked about earlier, if you would add ability like that into the Baratheons, man, this would be ridiculous. But it's a defensive ability, so it would fit the theme. So they are actually, ability-wise, in a very weird spot. I think this is the reason we also see like attachments like the Red Priestess, which is more about offensive stuff, actually, and not about defensive stuff. And yes, Stannis is more about, being the aggressive guy here, but still, even though Master Warden has this order, which is a defensive ability, yes, but it's a very new mechanic, and it's also just an order. So there is some form of counterplay to it. And things like set for charge, yes, there's counterplay to such an ability as well. But Baratheons at this point have their ways to, just build a solid formation, just a front line you can't get through. And sooner or later, the enemy has to charge you and has to do something about your units because you're just closing in on him. Yeah, it's difficult to imagine what Simon will come up with, what kind of abilities those will have. Yeah, go ahead, Mickey.
I think the takeaway from this, the hot take, is if it's an ability that the Baratheons already have, it might almost be too strong.
Yep.
But whatever the ability is, I really hope it's on a different trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Geez. Oh man, this when this unit activates trigger kills me. Like, oh my god, it's ridiculous. Like, I understand that those effects are quite powerful, but guys, they overdid it at some points. Like Jesus.
Yeah, and also if you have the commander that also have the trigger.
Yeah, exactly. That's just oh my god. Like I have a card. Like if you're playing Renly side, you will have, thanks to Eldon Estermont, like I don't know, 10 cards in your hand, and all of them share like the same trigger. You're like, Jesus.
Every activation that I card, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of awkward, but yeah, but I understand this approach balancing wise. Like, for example, Stacks Resilience. My personal opinion, one of the best cards. It's just amazingly good. Yeah, therefore I can see why it has this very awkward and very hard trigger. But yeah.
And also before we go to the next slide, because I think we're taking a lot of time for it. What I really like in this box is that all sculpts, at least in my opinion, look really cool.
Yeah.
And
Can we just have a shout out here to the Stag Knights? We said them earlier. They are terrible Stag Knights.
Yeah.
Stag Knight Noble, man.
Man, he's so fucking cool. Oh my god, yeah, you're so right.
If like honestly, if Simon are listening, if anyone from Simon is listening, if they make like a 40 mil version of this sculpt, just a bigger version,
yeah,
I would just buy that,
Yeah.
have it sat on a counter somewhere because
Yeah.
it just looks good.
yeah,
I would paint him up lovely and like, yeah.
yeah.
I wish they were good.
Oh my god,
I
you're
wish
so
they were
right
good.
about this.
yeah. And to be honest, I know a lot of people will probably disagree with me, but my hidden gem in this box is the Master Warden, because he just has this feeling that he says to his enemy, "Yeah, I'm standing here. Come at me. I
Come
don't
at me,
care."
bro. Yeah.
And so it's not that he's leading. He's just standing there in like a rock in the water, and he's just not moving. And it's exactly
It's like
what
he
his
doesn't
abilities
care.
are.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
doesn't
He
give
doesn't
a flying
care. It's
F.
like, and what?
it's-
You've just charged.
Oh,
yeah,
cool,
and it's
cool, bro.
exactly what his ability does, and that's what I love on this model.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna charge with this landscape at you. Yeah, cool story, bro.
I don't care. Okay.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff in there. Like the new, like let's be honest, the new miniature sculpts, they all look like extremely cool. Like they come away. Like Simon, like if you look at the starter box and at the Sworn Swords, compared to these new models, Jesus, it's like two different worlds.
Yeah, to be honest, even the Versa sculpts still look
They still look
incredible.
good. Yeah, that's true as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay,
that's fun.
let's jump to the next faction. Then we have the Night's Watch Attachment Box, which is a little bit of a controversial one, but we will get to that in a second. First of all, we get an alternative sculpt for the Watch Captain, the Recruiter, and then we get new attachments, which are the Hardened Ranger, Senior Builder, and the Watch Marshal. So, yeah, I had to make that joke. It's
I
just
know.
it's just a community thing. Everyone knows about this.
It's not just that. I wanted to actually a bit of a shout out to Michael Chanel and Fabio Curry as well in the live stream, because they
Yeah.
said when they showed this, they said the same thing. They said this isn't Senor Builder, and I think it's great because it shows their little.
Oh shit! I missed it. Oh.
Yeah, building those stakes, huh? Yeah.
What I will say on sculpts wise, the Senor Builder looks exactly like the card made him
Yes.
look like, and so
No surprises here, huh?
yeah. Am I happy or sad to see that? Not really. I've got no comment to make on it. It's pretty much exactly what I pictured. And he looks hilarious. He's a fat guy. He's got his hammer. But
Yeah.
is it a good sculpt? Yeah, it might be. But it doesn't interest me. It doesn't get me excited, which is unfortunate.
True.
The hardened veteran we already seen. He was leaked before. The best in terms of the sculpt, in terms of the render. The most interesting thing here is something that's not actually that exciting, in my opinion, which is the alt sculpt for the Watch Captain.
Yeah, but I think so as well, actually. Yeah.
He looks awesome.
Yeah,
he looks like he stood on top of the wall, with his cloak blowing in the wind, and he's ordering people to go and deal with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really
I like him as well. Yeah, you're right about this one.
To be honest, most of the sculpts, except of the Hardened Ranger, look like they're overseeing their servants and like they're overseeing the activities the Night's Watch does and just give orders. And that's something a bit different to how the models at the moment look like, and you will see the difference if you put them right beside each other. And I think that's also a big point. And all of the Night's Watch look the same at the end. They're all guys in black clothes, and so if the models aren't that different, you will have a problem to see where's an attachment, where's not, and you don't have bannermans where you can showcase it by moving the bannermans one to the right. So if that's also a problem in quotes the Night's Watch have, which makes the Knights the faction not that much easily accessible by looking at it. And I think that's something which I personally like, to make everything clear and visible by just looking at the army, and that's a senior builder, and that's Watch Captain and so on.
Yeah.
So I will do a little bit of a shout out here to one of the guys that myself and Carlo and a couple of guys in the local area. One of the guys we play with, Dan McDonald. He has a Night's Watch army. He used to play Stark, but he plays Night's Watch now, and he has converted the entire army he has so far.
Wow. Okay.
So every single model is different and has been painted differently. So if you pick up any unit, like you pick up any single figure and any other single figure that you want to pick up, no two will be identical.
Oh
wow!
And
okay, that's a lot of dedication. Yeah.
Oh, it is. But he's made straw men as well for his conscript units, so you can put straw men in the units to make with the whole theme there. And he's made the characters look awesome. He's even got he's bought alternative characters. So he's he's got one of my Tormunds, and he's going to paint Tormund in Night's Watch black. So when he takes the black, he can actually put Tormund in the unit.
Oh, cool.
Honestly, big shout out to him. But I agree, Yannick. The Night's Watch looks boring otherwise, and I'm so glad that he's doing this, because I think his Night's Watch army, when it hits the table, looks different. It looks interesting. It actually looks like something you want to look at. Whereas most of the time, Night's Watch armies, when I've seen them, I'm like, nah, it's just There's a lot of black in it.
To be honest, what we need to say, the Night's Watch sculpts still look incredible, and I love them. I love to look at them, but yes.
I'm a bit disappointed with one.
Which one?
The recruiter one, right?
The recruiter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From this box here, yeah.
He's a simple sculpt, but actually he looks very similar to
the original one, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a kick in the teeth because actually, like, he doesn't look different enough for me. Not interesting enough, which is a shame. But yeah, that's probably my only bugbear so far.
Yeah.
It's like they just at the one he raised his arm with the stuff which is hanging down.
They just swapped arms.
Yeah, and
which to be honest,
just swapped arms. One goes up, one goes down.
Yeah.
But I think at least it's not the same sculpt. So.
Yeah. There is something super interesting though, right? The Watch Marshal, which is the thing we've not talked about at all, the thing we've not been revealed at all, really. And this is kind of where the disappointment / excitement comes. And you mentioned it before, Ilya.
Yep.
They only get 4 attachments for infantry, not 5.
Yes.
Which means less attachments overall, which again is a bit of a disappointment. But they do get 2 of their mounted attachments, which also were revealed to be solos.
Yes, exactly.
And that is 100% what Night's Watch needed to hear. Unfortunately, no one was excited about that reveal because we knew that Cold Hands was going to be a solo that was coming out. So although this is really good and I think really important, it's not like mind-blowingly, oh my god, this is amazing. It's more like, right, okay, good.
My personal opinion on all of this is, I think people saw the previous attachment boxes and they had like tons of cool looking stuff. Like if you look at those Lannisters, Starks, and then the Baratheons with all those new fancy toys, then you as a Night's Watch player, when you see your box, you're like, that looks kind of pale in comparison, right? But what people don't realize is that this box, for me personally, when I saw this, I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. Like, we get a solo calf. This is bonkers. Like, we needed that. And I think people don't understand the value or, the gravity of this attachment box. Like, you will get 2 solo cavalry units in this box. Yeah, sure, we don't know about the point cost of the Marshal, but as soon as he, is like at 4 points or something like that, maybe even less, who knows, he will be like a staple in almost every Night's Watch army. I can already predict that because Night's Watch has their unique and distinct problems right now as a faction and as a whole. But I could rant about this like for an entire hour. Like, we don't have the time for that. But he basically solves a problem that the Night's Watch has, which is not only activation disadvantage in most of their matchups, but maybe, and this is just a speculation on my part here, he may be able to provide additional actions to units on the table. And this, for me, is a huge deal breaker. If this is true, he will be amazing. Like, there will be no list without him, because right now, as an elite faction, all the Night's Watch need is to get those elite units to do more stuff on the table, more actions per round. And the only way to do this right now is only with Watcher on the Wall. But if you get an alternative for that, if you get this, this Marshal out there and he allows a unit to perform a free action, like for example, an attack or a maneuver at least, this would change things drastically, in my personal opinion.
So, at the risk of talking meta, I 100% think that you've got a little problem here. Mm-hmm. Whereas if that is what they do, like, they have to be a limited piece.
Yes.
Because otherwise you would just pick lots of them.
Yep. Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, I think he also will be kind of limited like the Dragonstone Noble. Like, you can only field maximum 2 of them. Maybe even just 1. Who knows?
Here's a little... I don't imagine you'll be able to field 1 because there's 2 in the box.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but I was thinking like the other one could be in like an attachment in the calf or something like that. But yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The thing that gets me a little bit with anything limited is a limited unit exists because of a lack of need to balance. What they do, they balance it by saying you can't have that many of them. Now,
Yeah,
with other
yeah.
things, they're called characters.
Yeah, yeah.
You're only allowed one character, but they're balanced. The characters inherently are balanced, generally speaking.
Yes. Yes.
With these, they're pseudo characters. They're kind of characters, but then they're not named characters. And the issue being that you pretty much will either always take up to their limit, or you won't.
Yes.
And you just won't take them. I think that these guys will be 100% picked if they're 3 points, and it comes back to a discussion I was having with you guys earlier.
Yeah.
If Night's Watch had access to Jorah and could take 2 of them,
Yes, all the time.
I think they would.
All the time, yeah.
And I think bad Night Watch players might not recognize that, but I think anyone who plays Night's Watch or knows how the game is currently played, you would take 2 Jorah solos 100% of the time.
Totally. Yep.
So will these guys get picked, and will you see probably 2 of them on the board? If they're cheap, I can almost guarantee it.
Yep. Yeah, that's my take on them as well. And the thing is about this box, like as we mentioned previously, here people got also disappointed by the looks of those attachments. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you here. Like, guys, what do you expect? The Night's Watch is not about fancy armor, not about, having those shiny bright knights or stuff like that. They're just simple guys on a wall that wear like simple armor, simple gear. There's not going to be a lot of variety here model wise, and the fact that they're trying to compensate that with stuff like the senior builder, which looks like Santa Claus, like basically he's very distinct among all those guys. They're trying to compensate for that by making them look more, they have more character to them. Like, for example, the Hardened Ranger, for me, he looks straight up like a ninja. Like, he doesn't have a lot of fancy armor, doesn't have a lot of fancy gear, but he looks different enough than anything else in the games that you can all, just by looking at him, you can tell, this is the Hardened Ranger. He looks like a goddamn ninja with those 2 daggers and the sword, whatever he has there equipped. And I think they're doing a great job trying to make the Night's Watch look as exciting as possible, because I think there's only so much you can do about this faction look-wise. Like, if you think about it, even Free Folk, who are supposed to be the Wildlings, you can do way more stuff with them than with the Night's Watch. Because if you look at the Bonelords Chosen, those guys look amazing. Like, they have this bone armor, all those ornaments and stuff like that. Fen Warriors look extremely cool. Raiders are wearing different, felts and stuff like that. Like, you have way more possibilities than with the Night's Watch. So, yeah, I understand that people are disappointed about this box from the sculptures and from the attachment variety. But guys, you really need to look at it from a different angle. Like, there's so much Simon can do about this, and they're trying their hardest, really.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say about Night's Watch, and is a little bit disappointing at the moment, but I think will come, is every other faction has its sub-factions.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
For me, they haven't perhaps explored the sub-factions well enough within the Night's Watch. Like, the builders are not expanded on in the right way, in my opinion, from a looks perspective, compared to, say, the Rangers, compared to, say, the other things. That I know that there's the long-lasting theme. I know they're all the brothers and things like that. But wouldn't it be wouldn't it be awesome if we saw like an Eastwatch unit? Which looked sure. Just a bit of variation. Sure. I'm not asking for like a huge kind of like reshift and a re-way to think Night's Watch. Just something a little bit different and looks a little bit different, I think would be welcomed in the Night's Watch. And I actually think something like Cold Hands on his stag might be something that fits that kind of like MO, because he's going to be different enough.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings us back to another disappointment, which we might see when we see the Asia Expo next weekend.
Yes.
But nothing was said about Night's Watch Hero Box 2.
Oh, again. God, don't get me started on this one. It's like,
It's
we
been a
know
long
about
time coming.
hey,
you know,
dude.
and
We know about the Night's Watch Heroes box like for almost 1.5 years now. Like it's ridiculous. People know about that this box will come, but they're not even mentioning it. They're
we
not
even know what's in it.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah, exactly. But they're not mentioning it at all. Like at this point, a second Heroes box for Free Folk and for Night's Watch should be on the horizon at least. Like you should know like a quarter or something like that. But we don't know like shit about this box. It's mind-boggling. Like we know now about the attachment boxes for these factions, but we didn't get to see even a like an official response to the Heroes boxes. It's weird. It's so weird. I really hope that they're dropping the hammer here as well, and we'll like be at the Simon Expo, and next week they're like, guys, we got you covered. Here's like a first look at the Heroes box, and you can see like one card or maybe two or something like that. And then I would be like, okay, now I'm fine with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the kind of spoilers that we want.
Yeah,
Spoilers about things that we know are coming, that we just don't know when, and they can go like, here it is, and here's some rules for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
What we don't want is just some things we like knew were coming and just see some sculpt. Like in the nicest possible sense, seeing some sculpts is really nice, but until you see the rules, the sculpts are pointless.
Yes, exactly.
But to be honest, we shouldn't have that high expectations.
No.
And
no,
if
it's
we
not,
have too high expectations, then yeah, we will.
No, it's not actually. I mean, like I don't see them even talking about this Heroes box. It's just the fact that they have to understand that people are very I am as a Nightwatch player was kind of disappointed by this box, not because of its content, but just because of I'm getting the attachment box before I get a Heroes box too. Like this is kind of weird. Like they're not even talking about Heroes Box 2 at this point. They're just ignoring it for some reason. This is concerning.
I guess that all the attachment boxes will go to retail at the same time.
Yeah.
So it makes sense if the distribution date was before the hero boxes, because maybe they wanted to push something for Starks and Lannisters who didn't get stuff for a longer time, or
they
new stuff. That they get them something, and it's not that much as a new unit or a new hero box, but that it's at least something which can change lists and change the way we look at the game. But it's not that you break the game and get some big shift in the meta and stuff like this. I don't expect this from the attachment boxes, but yeah, we will see. And I think then it makes sense that now the attachment boxes are coming.
What I will say, I think there's been a little bit of a disconnect between releases, a release schedule, and like what was maybe originally planned. So when a faction's been out for 2 years, you'd expect it to be at this point, for example, say make up a point, but you'd expect to have this many releases after 2 years for an individual faction. And we're reaching nearly a 1 year point for Targs, who's it's over a year right now, right? I think about a year since Targs were released.
Targs were released at the start of this year.
Oh,
there were some starter boxes out because they were prizes from Expo somewhere.
So Targs, I can kind of understand where they're behind, but it's worth noting that they haven't got a Targ attachment box because they're behind on the whole thing. So Targs are going to see some more units obviously come out, and we'll get on to some spoilers for them later on. But
yeah, exactly.
To be honest,
I think go ahead.
With Targs, I don't know if they have that many attachments. Also, Michael and Fabio said that there's no real attachment box at the moment because the Draki veterans are kind of the attachment box for Targs. Right now, it's a bit disappointing. I understand it, but
it's a fairly new faction. Like I wouldn't be so much disappointed. Like there's so much stuff on the horizon for the Targaryens, and we will see later, like extremely cool shit for them. Like let's be honest here, they're getting cool shit right now. Maybe Free Folk as well, but we'll come to this in a second as well. But yeah, I mean, like Targaryen players right now shouldn't be complaining because this faction is so young. And I mean, already I'm seeing people, coming up with very creative lists, and you can see that Targaryens have a lot of potential. Like, I think in the future, with a couple of more units, Targaryens will be on top. Like, their deck, I think it's even better than the Stark one. Like,
big claim, big claim.
Yeah.
I disagree because of one thing. Purely, there's pretty much one card. Swift Advance.
Oh,
yeah.
Swift Advance is one of the best cards in the game.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And
devastating impact.
Yeah, devastating impact. All over your commanders bring that. Winter is Coming is, I know people said it was rubbish a long time ago. I've never thought that card is bad. Like, I've never thought Winter is Coming is bad. But these cards,
I think it's one of the most hated cards by Ilya.
Yeah, because if you're playing Night's Watch against Starks, that's as soon as this card drops, you're in for some shit. Like, you're done. Like,
it's. I won't go into talking about why I think it's a bad card in terms of like balance reasons, but
I think let's don't get too distracted here a bunch. No. So just to summarize the Night's Watch attachment box here, overall, I can totally see why people are disappointed. But I would say don't be disappointed because of the contents of the box. It's more about Heroes Box 2 should be at least mentioned somewhere, that we have some, some date or maybe a quarter that we can look forward to. Because I see actually a lot of people dropping Night's Watch right now because they said to me they're boring to play. They don't have a lot of variety right now. And list building with them feels like a slug. Like, you only have like 2 competitive lists that are working in the current meta, and everything else is more like experimental and is more about fluff and trying to have as much fun as you can with those lists, but they're not working competitive wise.
To be honest, if we go a little bit into the competitive side, the problem is not that the stuff in the Night's Watch isn't good. It's the problem that other factions push the bar even higher, which they shouldn't do, in my opinion, especially Starks and Freefog. Starks Direwolves and the Skin Changer by Freefog, I think these are, in my opinion, the most problematic stuff. And I think if they weren't that problematic, I think Night's Watch would have more versatility in their list creations, and more lists would be playable. And it's not a Night's Watch problem. I think it's a problem outside of the faction.
I mean, one thing I will say on this before we move on is, and Simon will never say this because obviously they can't, and it's very hard to admit these things, and businesses can't admit these things. Well, good businesses can, I would say, but that's a different matter. But you run the risk of annoying players and seeing players leave. And I think, unfortunately, Night's Watch, Targaryens are suffering from it a little bit, but they're new, so there's an element of an excuse there for a reason. But Night's Watch, for the time that they've been out there, they were basically the third faction in the game.
Yeah.
If you exclude neutrals, of course.
Yeah.
And they're almost, from a lot of players' perspective and the community as a whole, I think they see them going without a lot of love. And the issue here being that if you don't keep the players happy at least a little bit, why stay? You won't stay in the game. And I don't want to say that it's bad. And this is a whole discussion on itself that we can get into. But that's what I'm a little bit worried, because that is the level of conversation that is being had with Night's Watch players. And I'm sure, Ilya, that you've thought, you're into the game enough that you'd play another faction, right?
Yes.
There are players out there who aren't into the game enough or don't have the funds to go and buy a new faction, but are currently not enjoying the faction they bought into. So yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, but as I said before, I think also this is just my last take on all this problem is that Night's Watch, like if you look at this attachment box, they don't have a lot of generic attachments because Night's Watch, and this is just a fact, has the most lineup of badass characters across all factions. Like
Oh yeah.
they're all about their heroes. They're all about their iconic, soldiers, watch captains like Jeor Mormont, like Alistair Thorn, Donal Noy, all those heroes of the Watch. They are like basically the core of this faction. They're all what the faction is about, actually. Hence, why they don't get a lot of generic attachments. It's way harder to come up with actually, generic attachments in such a faction. Therefore, you get a lot of more unique characters out there. For example, the Heroes Box 2 is supposed to get Sam, Tully, no, what is her name?
Sam Tully and Jilly.
Yeah, exactly. A second version of Cresta. You will get Cold Hands, who is just looks amazingly cool. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, people are waiting for those heroes, for those unique characters what is the Night's Watch all about? And I totally can understand why people are disappointed by this attachment box. Like, they were trying to, maybe the expectation bar was way too high here. They were trying to see, way more cool and fancy stuff, but that's not what the Night's Watch will be about. It's not about those generic attachments. It's all about those heroes and those unique characters. That's the entire fluff aspect of this faction. And that's also the reason why I personally hope that they will mention at least the Heroes Box 2 next week.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we'll wait and see, won't we?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's just the reason why this box is so controversial right now in the community. Hope we made it clear for you guys. But post in the comments below what your personal take on all of this is. Like, we are very interested to hear about this.
Yep.
Okay, guys, let's move on here to the next slide, which should be a very quick one. For some very awkward reason for us, I think, Simon decided to showcase the neutral Stormcloak Dervishes, which at this point have been played, have been seen, have been talked about quite a lot. Yeah, I think it's more for those people who are not into the tabletop simulator, who haven't seen them, haven't played them.
Also, I think the sculpts also got spoiled at some
Yeah,
point.
as I said, we have seen them before. Yeah.
We saw all the sculpts ages ago.
Yeah.
Back in the days when Vargo Hoat was revealed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The original Vargo Hoat before he was released. So we're talking about something that's kind of been out for over 9 months now, probably.
So to say, yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't quite interesting. Just nice to see them mentioned again, I guess. But yeah, I mean, if we were at it, what's your personal take on the Stormcloak Dervishes? So, do you like them? Do you think they're kind of weak? What's your take on them?
Yeah, they're all right. I've lost games to them, and then I've played with them, and they've done very little, and I've played with them, and they've done a lot. They're a unit that you don't want to really be engaging in the front of other units, and you need to use them in combo with other units as well. But that's possible because the mercenaries are all quite cheap. The Stormcloak mercenaries, if you go in that route.
Yeah.
The problem is, you're not going to make a Stormcloak faction army, a neutral army that Stormcloaks, because it's just not strong enough. And the Dervishes are probably the best in something like Baratheons, where the slow units that you've got are supplemented with a movement 6 unit, which I think is great. Yeah, they're okay. You know what? They're okay. They're not a bad unit, but at 7 points, they fill a gap that some factions need. And they can provide an alternative measure. So yeah. But that's what a neutral unit should be, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It shouldn't be an auto-include in a faction.
It's an option. It's basically an option.
Yeah, it's an option. For my personal opinion, I played with them a bit. They have problems because they want to get in the flank or rear of the opponent, and if your opponent plays it right, he will deny you the flanks or the rear of
And
your
it's
unit.
the
And
specific thing, them not being cavalry. They don't
yeah,
have the free maneuver like other things do, like the Outriders, for
also
example, to
this
get
one,
into
yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
it's more difficult.
I think that makes them more difficult to play, and so they won't be consistent. And a good player can deny these flank or rear charges pretty easily on how he will deploy his army and how he will maneuver his army. So I think as higher you go up the ladder in player skill, I think the Dervishes will get worse. That's my personal opinion on them.
I just
Because
want to
they
put
can,
Davos in them.
yeah,
That's what I want to do, and have movement 7 dervishes, which, if I have the right cards in hand, might get to move 8 that turn, and then might get to make a free march at the start of their turn. Yeah, I'll take
yeah.
that. I'll take a 16-inch march followed by a charge. Thank you very much.
Yeah, to be honest, I did that, and it worked once out of a lot of games because my
but Yannick,
opponent was
it
able
fun?
to deny. It was fun, but it
There you
don't
go. That's
won
all
me
that
the
matters.
game.
That's all that matters.
Goddamn power gamers all the time, man. Can even
Sometimes
No,
it won't
I-
work, but you know.
yeah. To be honest, to playing this unit, it is fun. That's for
Yeah.
sure. But it's not consistent enough that I personally will include them in my lists because
I think
they are
I
too
agree.
situational for me, and I know players who can easily counter them and who will deny me these opportunities in nearly all of the games, and that sucks.
I
But
would
to be honest,
definitely.
that's something which is on my opponent, that he plays incredibly good, and not
Yeah, I would
not that
definitely
the
look
unit
to
is bad.
make a Davos list with these guys in, just so I could, just so I could, like, I don't know, I put like Bronn in a unit, and charge Bronn in and get him killed, and then play as everything to get the attachment to go into Davos's unit, or whatever it is, and then just be like, right, my base movement is now movement 8. I have a card in my deck, and I've got 2 of them that give me +2 movement, and I have something that gives me a free march. So there's a chance that I can just do a 20-inch march at the start of my turn. And just,
No,
like
no,
the
no,
idea
no.
of doing that is just enough to make me want to try.
And it will work 1 out of 10 games or so.
Yeah, but that
And
one time it works.
then Mickey is happy, I guess.
That one time it works. What did you do? I marched across the whole board in one turn.
Yeah.
Corner to corner. Let's go.
Okay,
Next
so
thing, I think
Yeah.
the next thing can also march very.
yeah, so I think this next slide should have made you quite happy. Am I right, Mickey? So because you are a free folk player.
Yes, it should have made me quite happy.
But there's some caveat to that. But
So
yeah, go ahead.
This reveal, it's War Mammoths, right? And War Mammoths, I was watching this, and the likes of other free folk players that are known in the community, all got excited, and they saw, oh, War Mammoths, War Mammoths, War Mammoths. Except we've known War Mammoths have been coming out for, I want to say, pre-lockdown, so we're looking at maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
We've known War Mammoths are coming. Now, we didn't know what they would look like, and we do now know what they look like, and that's cool. That's exciting. They're large cavalry trays, which is kind of what you'd expect. Not large cavalry, sorry, large solo trays.
Yes.
So like things like war machines. So again, something, what we'd all expected and things like that. But the reason I'm not that excited, we got a little bit of a tease from Fabio as to an attack in terms of their stomp attack, which they also potentially could, not stomp on the enemy, but potentially stomp on your own people by the sounds of it. The reason I'm not more excited, honestly, is because all I can see is 2 mammoth models on the screen. And knowing that they were already coming out, this doesn't excite me. I don't know any more apart from this stomp attack, and even then, I don't really know the rules. So,
Yeah.
I'm just a bit kind of like, it's like, wow, you know, they wanted people to be like, oh my god, mammoths are coming out.
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it hasn't had that effect because I'd already been told that mammoths were coming out, and this wasn't something that I was like privy to secret information. This was something that had been posted up on the main group. You know, this is information that a lot of people already had.
Yeah.
And for me, it felt like I had to get fake excited when they did the reveal, and that's never fun.
Yeah.
Do I like the sculpts? That's actually another question. I'm not sure. And that sounds crazy, right? That
Yeah,
sounds crazy.
okay. What's your
Because
take
they
on
actually
that?
look good. They look good. I'm not going to say they don't look
Mhm.
good. But do I like the sculpts? I don't know if I do. They feel too war mammoth like than they do mammoth like. As in, if I put a giant next to this, I feel like the giant is thematically more imposing than these war mammoths. These war mammoths are almost like pack mules for giants.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they are exactly like this. I think I don't know who told me this, but in the past, mammoths were used like horses for
Yeah.
giants. So they were like cavalry, but there are not enough giants anymore to get them, to make their
So-
own cavalry unit, which makes sense.
So
somehow.
this comes back to the other problem, being that if they're meant to be a cavalry unit, like, and the much more exciting thing would have been to see a giant riding on the back of one. Like, I know that's a big ask, but it did come up. You know, someone asked about it, and someone said, "Oh, you should convert that." But like for me, that would have been okay. That looks interesting. That looks good. This is just kind of like, here's another beast you can take in your army that probably will be overpriced for free folk and probably won't be as good or will be equivalent to a giant. And it's increasing this limit of things that you might want to take that's kind of cool,
Yeah.
but ultimately probably isn't.
To be honest, what I found pretty interesting was that I think Fabio said that the war mammoths are kind of cheap.
But then he said for free folk. He said they're kind of cheap, but maybe not for free folk.
Yeah,
So
but
straight away I'm thinking 6 and 7 points.
yeah, but I
Yes.
think that's if the stomp attack, or I don't know what it is, if it's at least decent, I think they can get a point, and I think they are a bit more.
It has to be
more
as good as a giant.
Yeah, but I think they are more like on the faster side than giants. Giants are more like, I stand there, I take wounds, I can hold them, and I will punch you back, and it will get harder. And they said the mammoth won't be the tankiest unit, which is fine in my opinion. But when you then look at then they will be cheap, and also that they will probably be more maneuverable and have more reach than the giants. I think that's a fair trade-off.
Maybe. I think this is the issue though, like not knowing any of the rules, like not even like half a card. I wouldn't even need to know all the rules if I just got given some of the rules, but like written down, so I could analyze them rather than what
Yes.
someone says. Because what someone says, in the nicest possible sense, means nothing, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
You can
Because
understand it
written down
wrong.
rule,
Yeah.
you know that it can change. And that's kind of why I'm disappointed, because we've been told these nice things about them, but it's like the Unsullied Pikeman. Everyone was like, "Wow, Unsullied Pikeman came out," and I said, "Yeah, but you don't know the points cost."
Yeah.
And,
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, yes, they look
12
good,
points
but that could be
confirmed.
Hooray! I
yeah,
guess.
that could be a 30-point unit. You know,
Yeah.
people would be like, "Oh, that's my army. One unit of that's rubbish, isn't it?" You know. So until you can marry all these things together, it's very hard to look at them, and it's even harder to try and put a points cost or try and like evaluate them if we don't know a single one of their rules as well.
Yeah.
What I would be more interested in them doing, and I think is something that Simon don't do often, but I think it's something they should consider, is they should consider showing people the points cost of units in spoilers, but not necessarily showing rules. And there's a very good reason for that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If I know that these cost 7 points, I haven't got a clue what they do. Right? For all I know, they don't do anything, but I know they cost 7 points. I'm then going to try and build lists to include them. Then when they get revealed and I see the rules, I already have ideas about where I'm going to include them. I'm already hyped up to buy them.
Yeah, true.
You actually increase your sales by doing this. Because I've already got ideas of how I've got to fix them in the list and how I would want to run them, because I've been allowed to think about that. So yeah,
that's a fair point. That's totally a fair point that you're making there.
We often see the rules before we see the cost.
Yeah.
And I think it would be good to see the cost before the rules.
I think you now need to apply as the spoiler manager for Simon for Song of Ice.
Yeah, get to their marketing.
Yeah. You
get in
just
contact with them.
All the spoiler for them in the future.
But another thing here about Free Folk, they specifically said that they're going to reveal or showcase the attachment box at the Asian Expo.
Yes, yeah,
which was which was also a very weird thing to say, because I personally think that there might be something in this attachment box that they're trying to hype up. Like I could see something along the lines like a giant again, second solo giant running around.
Wow.
But other than that, I don't see a big reason why not to showcase the attachment box.
There's one thing that we speculated a little bit over at Hardhome in the main Discord.
Yeah.
The main reason they might not have shown it is because there might be an attachment in there for a unit that hasn't even been leaked.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So we already know the Walrus clan's going to be in there, and there was suggestions that maybe it will go at the start of the expo next week, because actually it will be relatively it'll be quite a dry one, a bit like the Night's Watch. It's going to have like 1 or 2 new attachments and then some old sculpts, and you're not going to be that impressed by it.
Yeah.
So they'll do that at like the start of the next expo, or it's going to have something like a cavalry attachment in, which blows open the doors for cavalry units for Free Folk.
Yeah, fair to say. Yeah, you're totally right about this one. Haven't thought about it, but if I like the moment you said it, I was like, then that's even more unfair to the Night's Watch. Like you're not even getting teased a new unit in this attachment box, and then Free Folk gets all the glory in this regard.
Like I mean, really,
Ouch.
like honestly, technically Free Folk are a unit release behind, but it doesn't look like it doesn't seem like they are, but they technically are 1 unit behind.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so going back to Night's Watch a little bit, this is why I think Night's Watch Hero Box 2 has to have some
some major surprises.
Something has to come up next weekend for them.
Oh boy!
Otherwise, I see even more hate towards the Night's Watch, and I think I'm going to be really disappointed.
Yeah,
but
anyway, you're totally right. The global Discord is already on fire in Castle Black. They were not happy about this all, but yikes! I mean, you said just that Free Folk is 1 unit behind. I guess here you go. Here's your Mammoths.
Yeah. And you know what? This is a little bit like a damper on the spoiler coming later. But this is something that I kind of knew was going to be in the game a year ago.
Yeah.
Right? Because, come on, Simon, they're a business, right? If you put Mammoths in the game, people are going to buy them. And Mammoths are in the TV show, Mammoths are in the books.
Yeah.
Right? People are going to buy them. So, of course, you put them in. And this leads us onto a spoiler, which we'll get onto later on, where people are like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Yeah, you're right.
What is exciting? Anyway,
what's the big surprise here? Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so there's basically nothing else to say about the War Mammoths. We know about the ability that they will have something that makes them stomp around and hit even their own units. Other than that, not much to say here. Looks cool.
Yeah. I can see modifying one. I can definitely see modifying one with the giant on. 100%.
It'll probably look great painted on the table as well. Yep.
I actually bought a big resin mammoth myself to use
cool.
as a mammoth. I was showing Yannick earlier. I've got him already. I haven't painted him up yet, but I was just going to use a proxy until these were released. But I guess now that they've been teased, I won't have to use the proxy. So
great. Okay, guys, then let's get over to the new exciting boys on the hood. We have the Greyjoys, and there were actually a new couple of things in here. Again, they didn't show any card, didn't mention any form of stat, just teased a couple of abilities here and there. But it was still kind of cool to see actually the models, because Greyjoys, we haven't seen even the Sculpts before. So this was kind of neat.
Also, we know exactly what is in the starter box after.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, basically they showed the entire contents of the starter box model-wise. So yeah, there you go, I guess. So maybe with a little bit of hope, next week at the Asian Expo we can see more tactic cards. I would love to see more tactic cards. But yeah, let's start with the House Greyjoy Ironborn Reavers. They have showcased their card before, like the front side. We don't know their point cost, but now we actually see their sculpts, and I have to say they look pretty good for a basic unit. Man, they have so much detail on them that it's ridiculous. And my personal favorite among all the models they have, except for Victarion, which we will talk about later, is the Reaver Captain. I think he looks amazingly cool. Like, but what's your take on the Ironborn Reavers, guys?
I'm gonna throw it out there. I like them, the sculpts, obviously. But I want to throw a bit of a spanner in the works and draw you back to Thens. Yeah. Do you think that these units have very similar styling to the Thens have, with the scale mail and the padding?
A little bit, yeah. I can see that. I can see that totally in their helmets. But the thing is, what makes the big difference here is you can have, if you are painting these guys.
Oh God,
right?
Yeah.
We don't have anything in the game that is related to water. So you can make them look like extremely distinct from anything else in the game and make them look extremely cool. Like my idea is, and I'm not a painter, but I would love to see someone make their bases like they're in water, like they're coming from the shore, just landing there. This would look just badass.
So Greyjoys were going to be my second faction that I actually physically pick up. I even picked up a Neutral Hero Box 2 just for Walder and a couple of other detachments because they might be useful with the Greyjoys.
Yeah.
But Greyjoy is definitely going to be the next faction I pick up. And I've already been playing around with water-style bases for a unit of trappers to make them look like they were running through like a bit of a marsh. So I 100%, when I get some things sorted, I am definitely going to be building like somewhat of a beach style scene, perhaps, with making them look like they're running up the beach with the waves. If I can get it working.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, I think
100% see that.
Yeah, it's gonna look amazingly cool, and that's the entire reason that I'm looking forward to them, because they are representing a aspect that we haven't seen before, and this is all about this sea warfare, plundering, pillaging. It's a very unique new style of warfare that we haven't seen so far, and I just really want to see those tactic cards and how they're going to implement this play style into the game. But so far, I love their models, and yeah, you're right. They look a little bit similar to the Fen Warriors, but at the same time, Fen Warriors look for me more like barbarians, actually.
Sure.
They are like straight up Vikings. Like, I mean, barbarians and Vikings look alike as well. If you're gonna be honest here, they look quite similar as well. Yeah, but the other one has like, I don't know.
These are they're like a halfway house.
Yeah, exactly.
These guys are like the halfway house between the two, and it really makes them work. I'm really excited to pick some of these guys up and paint them.
Yeah.
Totally. Also, the Bannerman is really cool.
Yeah, this thing made me chuckle so hard. I was like, "What the hell?"
It's just a squid. Put on the banner on top.
It's kind of, it's kind of goofy, but at the same time, it looks cool. It's it's very creative. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I like it. Like, I actually like it. I was like, first I was like, huh? I had to laugh, but then I was like, huh? Looks kind of cool. It's very creative. I like the idea.
Yeah, and what we maybe can say about the creatures in general, there were some spoilers about how the faction will work, which got a bit deeper than they did last time. General, the faction is playing around the pillage mechanic, and the pillage mechanic is if you kill a ranked on an enemy unit, you will get a pillage token if your unit has this pillage mechanic. On the Ironborn Reavers, it's if they kill a rank, they can get a pillage token, and they get a maximum of 2 pillage token on them. And if they have a pillage token, they get a buff, so they get I think +1 to hit and +1 attack dice or something like this per pillage token, which makes them incredibly strong if they can manage to get these tokens. And also what they said in the stream is that, yeah, killing the enemy is the main way, as far as I understand them, to get these pillage tokens, but there will be tactic cards that are an additional source for pillage tokens, so you're not over-relying on it, but if you don't win right from the start, you will most likely lose because you don't get your engine running. And I think that's a really cool concept to have a faction which needs to be aggressive and which needs to constantly push forward to get an advantage and snowball the game. And I think that's a unique mechanic which isn't already in the game and something which will completely be new. And
So
yeah, I really like it.
I will say, you say it's not really in the game at the moment. I think it is, just not from a direct mechanics perspective, and more like how the game is played out. Because I think free folk have a very similar effect. If free folk start losing, they typically snowball into a loss. And if free folk win, and they will typically, if they get that early advantage, snowball into a victory. So it's different because obviously they don't have any inherently win more mechanics. It's just how activation advantage works.
Yeah.
Going back to Greyjoys though, with a little bit of a caveat, I really like the idea that the units are the win more mechanics. Because from a balance perspective, that's actually a much better thing. Okay?
Yeah.
If the units are the win more mechanic, you can then balance the tactics deck to be the resilience side of things. And what this means is if the win more mechanic is too heavy, you can then come back and readdress the units, which they've done before. Whereas if the win more mechanic is something in like a deck, which they haven't yet addressed anything like tactics card wise, I think it's a lot harder to balance. So I like this from a design perspective, because what they're saying is the thing that might be unbalanced is something we are willing to change. And the thing that should be fairly balanced is going to stay the way it is already. Yeah. So this, from me, from a design perspective, is actually a very good ethos to follow. And in my view, it shows that they've perhaps made mistakes in the past that they've learned from. I'm really looking forward to the Greyjoys because of it as well, because I think it's going to be hard. I think they're either going to be far too strong or far too powerful, and I think you're either going to have games which are crushing defeats or crushing wins.
Yeah. That's
but I really like the idea that you can have if they balance it really well, which I really hope they do. You can have a faction which is all about trying to get one up, and the moment you get one up, it's about trying to really take advantage of that one up. Rather than what other factions will do, where they say, "Oh, right, I'm one up here, but I'm going to, take the advantage over there." Whereas this has to be with the unit that's doing well. It has to keep doing well.
Yes. My personal take on the Greyjoys and the things we have seen and heard so far is that I think you're right as well, that the units will be like this snowball mechanic. Like they have this pillage mechanic integrated into them, and this is supposed to be the snowball. Their tactic decks, I think, we just complement this playstyle. just will give them more options, will give them some utility stuff. Like I could see a card allowing you to switch pillage tokens from one unit to another, basically transferring buffs from here to there where you need them at this moment.
That's cool.
It would just, yeah. Go ahead.
To mention a card that was already released, when they showed What Is Dead May Never Die.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that for me is a very good card in terms of balance.
Yes.
Because it's something that allows you to stay around, it allows you to continue to exist in the fight. But it's not like a win more mechanic. Like, because if you have to keep, it's one of these things where you don't die now. Brilliant. But if you're not aggressive and you're not going to take advantage of that, you will die later.
Exactly. Yes.
So
I love it.
It's unlike all these other things which are like, oh, I just like John's things. Oh, the unit just doesn't die.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, right, okay. Whereas this is like, no, there's a cost to not dying. It's you have to go and try and win.
Yes, exactly.
And I like that. I like that because it forces these duality plays where it's like, yes, it can be a strong base effect, but you have to take advantage of the effects. Otherwise, you are going to waste. You're going to waste the opportunity and waste the card. These kind of ideas, if that's going to be the way the Greyjoys play out, brilliant faction, 10 out of 10, maybe better than Free Folk.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like the first moment I saw this card, I was like, huh, that's a great utility card. Like you have already so many options with this in combination with Euron that we have seen already his backside, and he has Cunning Ploy. We know about the Reaver Captain who can he has Outflank basically as an ability, as an attachment ability. So there was already like so much combo potential with just this few informations, and the tactic deck seems to just try to encourage a very risky play style, but is not pushing it into an extreme where you're like, I'm getting like +3 dice on this attack and critical blow. That's not what I want to see. I really want to see more like I don't know, like more stuff like What Is That May Never Die, like cards like that who are very unique, who provide you very cool new options to play the game, but are not trying to push this over aggressive charging in play style, which we already have with Starks and Targaryens. Like they really need to make Greyjoys as unique as possible, because we already have basically free folk, very aggressive armies in this game. And if Greyjoys are just a copy paste of Starks, then they're not going to see a lot of play because Starks are just way more effective at what they're doing. But if Greyjoys are, have those unique mechanics in their tactics deck, that would differentiate them from everything else in the game, would also make them play out way more fun, and wouldn't give them like counter strategies to factions like the Starks and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think the thing is, with going back to what you just said there, and you could release the Greyjoys with these styles, and they wouldn't even have to be that good a faction. Like, I think you could probably release them and they'd be like mid-tier in terms of power rating. But you could at least, it feels to me like I could play that faction and feel like in any given game I've got a very good chance to win if I play the right kind of things, and feel like there's always opportunities to take advantage of, rather than feeling like you go into a game and it's like, oh, this is just awful. Or going into a game thinking I can't lose. I think this is one of those factions which is going to be a bit knife edgy every single game, which is a little bit what the Free Folk is sometimes like as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I like those factions because the game is down to how well you play that game.
Yeah, sure.
And not down to what you built and what you decided to bring and what your opponent has and what scenario it is. All of those things. Every single game is right. Here's the puzzle. Fix it.
Yeah, you're totally right about this one. I also think that based on the things that we know so far about Greyjoys, that their skill cap will be pretty high. Based on my experience with other games where you're playing glass cannon factions, or basically every RPG, if you played the Berserker, right, who is getting stronger the more damage he gets and stuff like that. You are always on the brink of death, but you have to manage this little, this little amount of health you got to get the maximum out of damage out there. And Greyjoys are not Berserkers, but they still encourage this very risky play style. And I think when this faction will release, initially a lot of players will think they're weak or will struggle with them. I would love to say that, for example, Outflank is an ability that is very hard to use. You really have to know when is the best timing to deploy your unit. That's something that newer players struggling with. That's just my personal opinion. But if this faction is all about this risky play style, trying to be always on the edge and trying to keep this momentum going, because if you win a fight, you will need to get to the next fight as fast as possible and win this one as well. And this is not easy. This is not easy. This is a very hard thing to do, actually, except if you're playing Starks. Maybe didn't you have, like, I don't know, shit ton of mechanics to do that. But if you're not Starks, and if you're not having, for example, like, I don't see Greyjoys having cavalry at all, so they're all about infantry.
No, they have like one or two ponies, right?
I guess so. I don't know, but they're not known for their, cavalry and stuff like that. But my point is just, like, you have to manage your fragile units, and they're all glass cannons, and you have to keep on winning and winning and winning, because if you just lose maybe even once, this dynamo effect will just go off and they will just not get back into the game. I think they're going to be a very high skill gap faction.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what they want to achieve with them. And they said they will have high damage. You need to get ahead, and yeah, you have sustain abilities or cards, but they are not straight up healing or something like this. It's a bit different than what we have now, and to be honest, that sounds really interesting and sounds so much different, and I think a lot of people will have fun playing them.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay, then let's jump to the next unit that got spoiled here. We have the House Greyjoy, House Harlov Reapers. A lot of people were disappointed there's no more skives on them. But Michael explained, like, that doesn't make sense lore-wise, and yeah.
You don't harvest your enemies.
Yes, exactly. War skives are not exactly the most seen weapon on the battlefield, and it's very unpractical. So they got big, huge ass axes. I think they look amazingly cool. They reminded me of the White Lions from the Warhammer Fantasy franchise with their axes a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I dig. I like them.
I think they look cool.
Yeah, totally.
There's one thing that this unit it's worth pointing out.
Oh, you've seen it as well, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, if you count the number of figures on the screen,
exactly,
there are 13. And 13 is not equal to 12, for those of you who aren't sure about maths. Meaning that either Greyjoys get units of 13, which I somehow doubt, or...
I would love to see that tray, man.
I know, right? We've got an attachment, though. That's probably what this is what this means.
Yes,
it's the guy at the front with the axe, like in the front left corner of the picture.
Yes,
in front
exactly.
of the bannerman. Which is cool. We have no idea what they're going to do. We have no real idea about anything, really, do we? I think, do we see the card? I can't remember.
No card spoiled. They just explained a couple of things. Yeah, go ahead, Yannick.
The only thing which they said is that Greyjoys overall will go mostly through the armor, so they don't play around the moral aspect of the game that much, but the Reapers will do this, so I think we can expect some panic-based mechanics on them.
Vicious?
Probably.
Yeah. That would be the easiest one.
yeah, probably. Yeah.
But also, I think after the stream, we met with a small group, and somebody said, "Yeah, why not cut them down on maybe the attachment or something like this?"
Yeah.
And I think they will be more in their own bubble, but they will work with the mechanics provided by the faction. So they are unique, and they will have an specific role in the battlefield which they need to fulfill, and which I think makes the unit pretty interesting, even
Definitely.
that we don't know the cards yet. So that's
I can imagine this unit filling a similar role in the Greyjoys as the as what is now the Great Axes for Starks. The Berserkers are the go-to unit, but the utility side of units is more like the Great Axes, and they've got a very unique spot in the Stark army. I can see the Reapers being a similar kind of vein. They have a unique spot in the army and provide a utility that is otherwise perhaps not, as they said, as much is perhaps not necessarily going to be the main Greyjoy faction, but actually can, in some lists, can provide really useful utility option. So yeah.
Yep. The way I understand it, they described them to being very a horrific thing to see on a battlefield if they chop up your friends next staying to you. So I think it's fair to say that they have something like vicious along the lines, something like that. And they also said something about them being shock troops, which was kind of to me very awkward because Reavers seem to be shock troops as well. So I was like,
maybe
they probably will. Yeah, I think
army is something shock troop.
Yeah, I was like, huh, okay, so wait, are Reavers like considered to be tanky then in this regard? So my first thing was they probably will have a 6+ armor save or something like that. So yeah, but maybe they will make it up. They also said that they will have maybe, I'm not sure if this is right, but they will maybe have capabilities to heal themselves, which I would love to see because they called Reapers, so they're basically harvesting enemies, and maybe we will see the ability fueled by slaughter that we once got spoiled, I think, on the first initial reveal on the KO, right? One of the Targaryen units had fueled by slaughter.
Fueled by slaughter? Is it not the tactic cards on the Red Shirt?
No. That's basic ability. Every time you destroy an enemy rank, you may heal up 1 wound, I think, D3 wound, something like that.
Yeah.
And I would love to see something like this. Maybe even they could implement it into their pillage mechanic, like, you are getting a pillage token every time you destroy a rank. And at any time, when this unit activates, you may spend a pillage token to heal D3 +1 wounds. Something like that. Would just, add to the dynamic of the faction, would make them more distinct from everything else in the game, would make them play out way more interesting than just your typical mountainsmen, for example, who are just rushing in there, trying to get as much damage out as they can. And these guys could, just being always try to be on top of the enemy by healing themselves, by destroying enemy ranks. Yeah, I don't know. I like their design. I like their look. I just hope we will see their card ASAP, because it's very hard to wait for this faction. I'm waiting since Kickstarter, basically. So
now it's your time.
Yeah, who knows?
You were able to hold you back until now.
I guess so.
A little bit longer.
Yeah, guess so. I really hope end of the year.
Guys. Yeah, I hope so too. The models look
drop.
really nice. I don't care what they do. I just want the models.
Yeah,
I pile of shame until I paint them in 3 years or so.
I really want to see how people will paint them up. Like, you can do so much cool stuff. Like, man, the possibilities. Like water, this water style thing we haven't explored so far in the game could be just amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have on our next slide, they revealed the characters for the starter box. So we have 2 commanders in there. We have Asha Greyjoy and we have Victarion Greyjoy. And our both NCUs are Roderick Harloff and Aeron Greyjoy. So we already seen Aeron Greyjoy before. We know what he actually does. He got an influence effect every time the influenced unit attacks. They may heal a wound, but if they destroy an enemy rank, they may heal D3 wounds afterwards. So very cool influence. And then they showed off also Asha's I think it was her front side, right? She has inspiring presence, like Mance Raider. So basically, she has a short range morale bubble of 5+, which is extremely good.
Yeah, she has inspiring presence and rallying rally point, which are the same ability Mance Raider have. Inspiring presence gives this unit 5+ morale.
Yes.
And rallying point just spread it out to units in short range.
Which I think that's just amazing. Like that's a very good ability. Like I think Michael, in one of his gag posts where he had like this buying list, wrote even down that maybe Asha is too good. She could be a hind. I don't know, but I already love this ability. But
at least when we look at the Reavers, they have a moral value of 7.
Yes.
So if you increase this by 2 to 5,
it's cool.
Yeah, it's cool, and I think that makes this unit way more survivable. And I think when the Ironborn Reavers are your standard infantry unit, I think Asha can help them really out. And I think that's the whole point on her commander, that she will help your unit. I think she don't be that aggressive, at least from her attachment side of things. But if she can help your units out to survive longer because you don't take that much panic damage, I think that's great, because if you survive longer, you can do more damage, you get stronger, get more pillage tokens, and win the game. At least that's what I expect from them.
Yeah, that's true. The more I think about it, the more Greyjoys remind me of the orcs from Warhammer. Actually, that's kind of what orcs do. They'll just snowball as well. They pillage and plunder stuff on the battlefield. Huh, interesting. Well, but nonetheless, we got those two characters out of the way, because now they have talked about Victarion, who is the second commander in the box and my personal favorite character of all time, entire books and stuff, because he's a badass. And first thing, I was like, God damn, this miniature is huge. But yeah,
he's a big boy.
Yeah,
he is a big boy.
Sure thing, but I think just they scaled him up a little bit. If you look at their bases, they're different sizes, so I think he's not going to be that big. But if you just scale him down to the bases of the other characters, he still seems to be a head bigger than everyone else here. So he's among the ranks of Gregor and Hodor and stuff like that. So he's a powerhouse, and he is basically known for being a brute. And they also pseudo-revealed one of his tactic cards, which is called Sustained Assault. And the first moment I heard it, I was, wow, that sounds incredible. So basically, Victarion, when he plays this card, or was it one of his abilities as an attachment?
No, I'm not sure. It was one of his cards.
Cards, right?
Okay. That's what my notes said, which I made.
Yeah, it was a card. Yeah.
Cool. So basically, Sustained Assault allows you to perform an attack action with one of your units, melee attack, I guess. And after you have resolved this attack, you may resolve a second attack action with the lowest amount of dice that your unit can provide. First, I was like, geez, that sounds ridiculous. But they also mentioned that it has some drawbacks. So I guess you will probably lose wounds yourself. Because they also explained, which is kind of fitting, that Victarion doesn't care about his men. He just throws them at the enemy. It's like, yo, go ahead, bash them up. Like, he doesn't care about... Yeah.
Wrong faction, but...
Yeah. He's basically sacrificing his own men, pushing them to their limits. He doesn't care about their well-being. It's all about destroying the enemy. So it was kind of fitting, kind of thematic. I love the idea. And the thing is, I already saw the combo potential just with this one card. If you look at Aeron Greyjoy, right? If you influence a unit, and this unit is attacking multiple times in a round, thanks to Victarion cards, thanks to the combat zone, and we don't even know what their basic deck can, right? Man, that sounds incredibly powerful on paper. Like, I would love to see this played out. Like, I can't wait.
The only downside I have at the moment is, yeah, we only knew one unit, so I could be wrong, but at the moment, the unit we know of has only 3 attacks on the last ranks. Yeah, they can increase their attack profile by 2
True,
if they
yeah.
have 2 pillage tokens with the Ironborn Reavers, but you only get an attack with 3 attacks they can miss, and if they miss, yeah, then it's not so likely that your opponent will fail their that they will fail their defense save, and if they don't fail the defense save, they don't make a panic test, and I think the panic test, at least when you attack with Reavers, will do the most damage. And that's something where I'm a bit careful with, to don't be overexcited for this card. I think this card is great, and I think it has really good use, but it depends on how harsh the downside is, which I talked about.
Yeah, sure, that's true. But I also was thinking, like, even if you don't take into account Reavers, like, just by the description, the Reapers, if they have wishes, like, if you just can, make a unit make 2 panic checks in a row, that could be devastating. And if they really have cut them down, or maybe one of their attachments, man, that would be powerful. Like, even imagining stuff like, let's say, Bastard Girls, right? Man, that would be ridiculous. Like, you could shoot, you could charge in, you can play Victarion's card. We don't know the trigger yet, I know, but the possibilities are just insane. Like, 4 attacks in a row, that would be bonkers. Like, geez. And maybe they even get a unit that doesn't lose a lot of dice on the last rank. So who knows? But I already just love the concept here. The idea that they have this this way to attack multiple times just in a turn sounds incredibly cool. But other than that, that was actually Victarion. They didn't show any card as well. It's kind of frustrating. I was like hoping for at least one here, like, show his front side, maybe just like they showed Asha. Still don't get it. Yeah.
To me, it sounds like very much a choice that they didn't show any cards. Like, I think this is we can't just say, oh, they just chose not to reveal them. I think this is a very, very carefully chosen thing, than not to reveal cards. Because even the cards that we did get revealed in the one you've just talked about, Sustained Assault, this was something that almost like Fabio had to say, can I talk about this? And Michael's like, yeah, go on. We'll give them one.
True.
And it was like, to me, this seems like they did not want to give out card information and actually information about the game at this particular reveal. And like, I guess that's fair enough. That's their choice. Obviously, they're the company. We don't get to make that choice.
Yeah.
But as a community, this is, seeing cards is what's actually important for the game, not the models.
Yeah.
True. And people don't play this game because of the models. Because, like, for me, the models have already been good enough that the people who play for the models are already happy.
Yeah.
Like in the old releases.
Yeah.
People who play the game now predominantly like the models that are here, but are actually playing because they think they like the rules.
Yeah.
So,
but
I don't know if I don't know if they know more about their demographic than I do, which I hope they do. I mean, I'm just giving you guys right? What do I know about the demographic?
Yeah.
But if they get the demographic of the community wrong, which I know we've talked about a couple of times, I think they are actually at risk of damaging their own game by people abandoning it. I don't want to say that that's definitely going to happen. I think it's obviously a long way off that happening, but I think that this lack of information style, we talked about it earlier, but
yeah.
For me, I would have just liked to have seen the card that Victorian had, rather than just getting told it. Like, couldn't they have just shown us the card?
Yeah, it's honest, weird. Yeah,
there could be 2 possibilities why they don't want to show the cards. One is because they are not sure if if they get changed in the future.
Sure.
And that's maybe something that they are not sure on the balancing side of things, and
Sure,
they
sure.
need to figure it out. So yeah, the downside of this would be that the releases are not that near in the future as we all hope it is. The other thing is that there are cards with new mechanics in the game, which completely, and maybe not completely, but it changes the way we view the game, and they want a big reveal later. So they
Maybe.
don't get some information out, which can be misunderstood because you don't see the bigger picture. And to be honest, both excuses I can imagine works for me, because if they are still working on the stuff, they want to do it better than it is now, which is always great, I guess, because then they have more time balancing stuff and it will feel more rounded out in the end, which I personally like. And the other thing is, if they introduce something new and they want us to only knew it if we see the bigger picture, which we don't if we only get 1 or 2 spoilers, then I'm also fine with it, because it means that the game will evolve in a direction and they are really careful with it. And yeah, I think it's also great option to have. And so I really like to have new cards, but if I don't get cards, maybe they have a good reason for it. And if they have a good reason for it, which I hope, then it's
Yeah.
better. I say.
Like obviously they've chosen not to show us cards, probably for a very good reason. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna sit here and say they haven't got a good reason. But in the other hand, like, I'm not gonna sit here and defend them and say their decision is good, because other companies who've done other reveals will happily literally reveal the whole lot, and they'll also say in that same reveal, this is the date this stuff is coming out, this is when you can play with it. My issue a little bit with this reveal stream was the only thing we got set in stone was things that might be out eventually.
Yeah,
We were not
basically
told.
basically that said stuff exists.
Yeah,
we know that stuff exists. So
and
yeah,
that's like such an irrelevant thing to say, because in the end of the day, we already know these things will exist eventually if the game lasts infinitely long.
Yeah.
So saying that this stuff will exist is like just a non-point, and that's kind of why I was a little bit frustrated with the overall reveal personally, because we did not get a single piece of set in stone information.
yeah.
If you actually think back to it, we did not get a single piece of information that was set in stone that we didn't already know.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah.
as a user perspective, when you look at the other cons that are happening around GenCon and around all the other various different reveals, I'm not going to mention any of the other companies that have done some of the other reveals, but they give you solid information, and they either say, yep, we hit that target, or we didn't. Simon have just said, oh, look at all these shiny things that may or may not happen, and oh, look at this, and this. They're not committing to anything. And for me, a company that doesn't commit is not a company that is necessarily willing to commit, because they're afraid they're going to get it wrong. And
you're totally right. You know, but the thing that bothers me a lot about this stream is that at the end they revealed something big, right?
Which we'll get onto in a second, right?
Yeah, exactly. They revealed something extremely, extremely big, and this is also a subject to change, but we actually got stats. And for some, that's just bothers me a lot. Like, okay, you decided to show this huge deal breaker, even with stats, but you then talk about minor tactic cards and can't even show them. Like, you could just literally paint like you did previously, subject to change, just across the card, and everyone knows what's up. So just give me something here to work with. Like, don't basically tell me that stuff will happen, that stuff will exist. Just give me an idea how it will actually factually will look in the game. Just raw numbers. They don't have to be finalized. Like, I don't care if they're not finalized. And yeah, I know they're not. Yeah,
If anything, the community knowing the numbers will allow you to better finalize them, because the community will either go, that's too strong.
For example,
and play with it and play. The community become your play testers.
The thing is, I know that they're not trying to take any risk because they are trying to prevent stuff like, let's be honest here also, I mean, Facebook is a great push for the game, but the community also overreacts there all the time about every little minor thing. And I know they're trying basically to avoid this by not showing specific cards like, let's not show this units card because people will automatically assume they're overpowered. Because as Yannick said, they don't see the bigger picture here. They don't even know how the faction plays because we don't even saw their basic tactics stack. But people will automatically say, yo, Halaf Reapers have cut them down. That's overpowered as hell. No, but as a company, you have to take risks here. You have to show people something. And yes, those whiny people will always exist. Like, you can't do anything about it. You can avoid them for a specific amount of time, but sooner or later, those units will drop. And no matter what you do, there will people complain about them. Like, you can't avoid it. Like, just try to ignore them as much as you can. Try just to encourage people who are actually all about this game, who are trying to see all the positive aspects of the game. Like, we are talking about this game and analyzing stuff, maybe even over-analyzing a lot of stuff, Yeah, but it's just...
But that's why we're here, so...
Yes, exactly. It's also fun.
And, having fun.
So, from the other side, and I think this kind of sums it up quite well for me,
yep.
if you can't commit as a company, you can't commit to making statements and just saying, look, we're going to try to do this. And people will understand that if you miss a target date by a couple of days, people actually aren't ridiculously venomous like Facebook and things suggest.
Yeah.
Everyone understands that targets have been missed because of COVID, right?
Of course. Yeah.
That's obvious, right? But when you start to make promises which aren't set in stone, and then you fail to reach them and fail to hit them, and there's other issues, people get disillusioned because what they start to believe is that the promises are a load of rubbish, and what you aren't doing is you actually aren't committing to things. So in the past, they've made these veiled comments about, oh, it's going to be out here, and they're like, oh, that's the closest thing we've got to a commitment, and then they don't stick to it, and they're like, oh, actually, we didn't commit to it. And it's like, well, actually, that was a commitment enough. You can't then say you didn't make the commitment. You just said it maybe will be out here. That's not fair on the community. And if they're asking, going to my point, I guess, if they're unwilling to make commitments to the community about time schedules and other things, then how on earth can you expect the community to commit to buying these things and staying with the game?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's totally true. Like, you really need to, you need to take those risks. Like, if you want to be successful on this market, you need to take those risks. If I look at other tabletop games, they're doing it all the time. They're teasing units left and right, showing cards, always just writing, on top of them, subject to change or work in progress, something like that. But people know that not only the stuff will come in the near future, but they also know what they can, expect. Like, they even have a starting point here.
The FFG.
Yeah.
I was going to say Final Fantasy. It's not, though, is it? Completely forgotten. But they did the X-Men reveal for Marvel Crisis Protocol, right?
Yeah.
And they basically said, here is every single thing that's coming out, and here's every little bit of information you need, and this is roughly the date it's going to be coming out on.
Yes.
And that's like, you've given the community 3 or 4 months to talk, to speculate, to think. And
exactly.
This is a game, it's worth remembering, Marvel's Crisis Protocol is growing probably at a faster rate now than Song is. And that's because of the style and the method by which they are dealing with the community. And I think Simon have missed the trick there. I think that they are not dealing with what the community... You can't just do what the community wants.
Yeah.
But you have to keep the community happy. And like we just saw a reveal stream, and we've seen one of the chat rooms on the Discord server, which I know is only one section of it,
Yeah.
but we've literally seen one of that whole section, and it's all been negative comments. Like, you shouldn't have negative comments after a reveal stream.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a good thing. And yeah, you
Sadly
can have
so.
negative comments about balance, but that's not really negative. That's just about talking about balance.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
people literally saying, "I am not happy because you've failed to reach my expectations yet again," is a really bad thing. And unless they address it, I think they're going to be into big hot water, and the game, I think, is going to stagnate. And I hate that, because I absolutely love the game.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know, I think everyone here, all the community content creators absolutely love it. The reason, if anything, that I'm annoyed is because I love the game so much. I want to see it do well. I want to see this. I'd rather this game was played more than 40k.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. That would be the dream. Yeah.
Yeah, but it seems like at the moment it doesn't feel like that's what the developers want.
Yeah, who knows?
I
Who
don't know.
knows what their plans actually are? What's you know
Sure.
what's going on behind the curtain? We just can't speculate so much, because we are actually on the we are customers. In the end, we are customers. We are the guys who they are trying to sell stuff to, but we also trying to give them some sort of advice. Like, you have seen other companies doing it just better. Just there are so many examples out there how companies have managed this in a better way. And yeah, the stream, for all the content they've shown, I loved it. But at the same time, I was like, just give me something here to work with. Like,
Yeah,
come on,
and I think
guys.
it seems weird that this all sparked off the Victarion card, but that is the point. Like,
Yeah,
there was one card that they were willing to show us, and they, like, from a reveal perspective, aside from what we're going to come onto in a second, and they were unwilling to actually just show us it. They wanted to talk about it.
That's the weird thing.
Yeah,
so,
and it's just it's an ethos step that I think a lot of the community just are a bit kind of like, why?
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah,
should we move on?
we got you distracted a lot. Sorry, guys, but
Sorry.
I think it's also a very it's a very there's a topic that also has to be discussed at some point, like state of the game. Like, how is this game actually very progressing right now compared to other games in the tabletop wargaming communities?
And this is the thing, we love it. We love
Yeah.
the game. We think the game is brilliant. We think, sure, every game's got its problems, but we love the game and we want to see it work. And we want to see things, and we want to see Simon working with the community to make it work. And we want to see them developing and making the right moves that keep the community happy and grow the community at the same time.
Yes.
And all of these things are really good and really positive. And yeah, I just hope that they get back on that bandwagon a bit more.
Exactly. So, to finish off the slide, we have one last thing to talk here about, and that's actually Roderick Harlov, who is
Roderick
the yeah, exactly. They called him basically the super nerd. But they described him in a very interesting way, as Michael said, that he has some kind of ability that allows him to lay a tactic card to the side of the table, basically, keeping it in stock for a later turn, which is very interesting. And that's a mechanic we haven't seen so far. Basically, like side decking one of your tactic cards for a later usage, later usage. And
I will stop you there in that I actually think we have.
Oh, go ahead. Sure.
This, from what I understand, obviously there might be more to it than what we already know. It might be a bit more complicated. There might be some extra things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is basically what Old Sansa was. And it's to more extent what New Sansa
okay.
is.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Because if the card has been in your hand and you get to side deck it, that's the same thing as effectively discarding it and getting to return it later on in the game. The difference is it might not be a one-off, and you might be able to do it. If you can search through your deck as well to get this sideboarded card, your opponent knows about potentially, but you can still play. All of these ideas are really good, because I think it makes a balanced side to the game, and I think that's great. But in terms of the mechanic per se, I think it's already existed.
Yeah, you're true. You're true in this regard. But the way I understood it was that basically you can lay one card that you have already in hand to the side and use it later on. But you can basically fill up your hand again to cycle faster through your deck. And who knows? Maybe he's even allowed to side deck 2 cards, not only 1.
Yeah.
So
What we maybe also should consider what Fabio and Michael said in the stream, that most of us will get the ability wrong. So yeah, we could be on the very wrong track here, I guess.
yeah, sure.
This could be complete conjecture.
Yeah, of course.
It already
of
is
course.
pretty much.
Yep.
But it strikes me as one of those things. I mean, if my understanding from other mechanics from other games, it would be you reveal the card, it gets played as a side piece, and then you can play that card at any time when the trigger is available. And there is a query as to whether or not that would use the card. Like, it might be one of those things where you actually get to use the card every time. It becomes like effectively the card becomes an ability rather than staying as a tactics card. Those styles of things have existed in other games as well.
Yeah.
So something like that, I can very much see. I can see some use in it. I don't know. I think it could be good. You obviously are revealing information to your opponent as to what the card is, probably. Because hidden mechanics and hidden cards is not something the game has ever done outside of what's in your hand.
But that would be a cool new thing, I would love to see that.
It would be. And I think that if they're willing to go for that level of design, then I can already think of a myriad of different things that use those similar design features, which they could introduce.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that being said, like, we'll have to wait and see. Is it strong? It really depends on the cards and how the ability works. Is it going to be interesting? Oh, sure is. Definitely.
I'm already happy that Greyjoys probably will have some sort of, drawing mechanic in there. So I always love drawing mechanics in games. More options, always good.
I like the idea that they've, and even though I said the ability is kind of something like Sansa already had a little bit, I like the idea that they're willing to use introduce new mechanics. And I don't mean things like the Pillage Mechanic, which, yes, it's a mechanic, but really it just substitutes what already existed in the game, right? You're already going to attack. You just get benefits after the attack is finished.
Exactly.
That's nothing new there. We've had things like faith tokens of similar kind of effect on the panic test. This ability, this thing that Roderick might be bringing, could be a completely independent, new, separate mechanic.
Yes.
And in that regard, brilliant. Love it.
Yep. Would love to see it as well. Yep.
100%.
Okay, guys. Then we can move on now to the last unit that has been spoiled for the starter box of the Greyjoys. We have the House Greyjoy Ironbone Bowman. To our surprise, no axe throwers, So we got actually bowmen here, and I might say I don't like their helmets. They look a little bit, I don't know, look a little bit weird to me, clunky. But they describe them to be a unit that is like more of a support unit. They're not supposed to be the damaging aspect of the Greyjoys, but will have capabilities to buff friendly units nearby your target. And I can't think of an ability in the game right now that does something similar.
I can.
Go ahead.
It's not in the game. It's not in the game, right?
Oh, okay.
But it is going to be in the game, and we already know the mechanic effectively is in the game. It already exists, inverted commas. When this unit destroys an enemy rank, give a pillage token to a unit within short range.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
In short range of the target.
Sure. Yeah, I could see something like that.
Just
Yeah.
a pillage token, not for this unit, but from the unit who's looting.
In short range. Yeah, makes sense.
So you shoot the unit, and then a unit close to it gets a pillage token because they're like, look, our enemies are dying.
Yeah.
Let's get stuck in, I can
True.
see that kind of effect happening.
Good point.
And actually, in terms of balance, makes some sense. You know, it means that, you know, you're not just going to be stuck with units having to waste time trying to get pillage tokens. You can kind of do a little bit of setup for them. You can get them a bit beefed in before they need to go in because they've already done some prep work as well. Yeah,
Sure.
that I'm not saying that is the ability, but I can see how an ability like that would work.
Yeah, totally.
Also-
Yeah, you're right. Yep, that's a good point.
Also, what I find really interesting, their ranged unit,
Yeah.
and also when we look at how's he called, the captain from the Reaver. Is he called Reaver Captain?
The
Reaver Captain. Yeah.
He has the ability to outflank. So, like Fabio said, not in this expo, but on the Simon expo, I guess, that the Reaver Captain will synergize with the Bowman. And at this point, we didn't knew that Greyjoy Bowman were a thing.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of did. We kind of did. When he said
Kinda.
that, we were like, "Oh, right, hang on, he's done it. He's revealed it."
Yeah, kind of, but not in this form. But
No.
I think what is really interesting on this is that you can bring in your unit, and if you're the first player, go on the combat zone and just shoot the enemy in the back. And I think that's a really interesting idea, which is kind of vicious because your opponent don't have many options to prevent this besides just blocking the flank where they could appear. But I think that's really difficult, especially if you don't have that much units.
May I interrupt you guys, because I have a hot take on this one, because you mentioned the Reaver Captain here, and in the previous showcase they haven't showed the backside of the captain because they mentioned that he has some sort of surprise there. So if you look at the slide of the House Ironborn Reavers, how many models do you see there, including the Reaver Captain? 12, right? So my guess is he is just in there all the time, ignoring attachment restrictions, and will cost 0 points, but will only be allowed in the Reavers.
Interesting.
This is my personal take, because I can see why they have only showed 12 models here on the House Greyjoy Ironborn Reavers, but showed 13 models on the Reapers, which includes the new attachment.
To be honest, where I need to hold you back a little bit, I don't see any unique model in there on the Ironborn Reavers, so maybe they just forgot him.
No, he's there. He's there.
One unique
front row next to
the
next to the banner is the captain.
Oh really? Oh,
like
then
unique.
Oh
that's, that's his helmet. He's my favorite model right now because I love this helmet. And
he has spiky helmet. Yes.
Yeah. And
going back to the Bowman, then.
Yeah.
Going back to the Bowman, then it gives more credence to the to maybe it's like giving a pillage token, because you run your Bowman up, shoot the enemy on the same turn that you brought your outflank on, because your outflank unit that's now in the rear has now already got 1 pillage token when they start the next turn. So I can see some, this idea that they're shooting the enemy and then all of a sudden a load of raiders pop up and they're like, come on then, they're already weak, we're in behind them, let's get stuck in. I can see how that would thematically work.
Yes.
And I think it brings a little bit more power to the pillage token. I don't know idea. Going for other things, of course, they could give vulnerable tokens out. They could give weakened tokens out. They could prevent orders or things like this. I think they're going to be. We don't know anything about them, of course. We just know they're bowmen.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, fair to say.
Go ahead. One of the most important things, which I know that the community on Discord has been talking about loads, like so much. Like they talked about the size of the bows You know,
Oh
they go,
yeah,
"Oh,
I've seen that
long
one.
bow,
Yeah,
short
yeah.
bow, composite bow." No one
Composite
cares,
bows, yeah.
right? They are composite bows if it
Let's-
means anything.
Yeah,
But
right.
they're doing that because they want to know the range.
Yeah,
And the
sure.
simple fact of the
yeah.
matter is,
To be honest,
we
if
don't
you
know.
compare the Trapper bows and the bows from the Stark Bowman,
The same
they
size.
looked exactly the same. And
Yeah.
one
Exactly.
is long range, one is short range. Okay, one is free folk, white links. If
Like-
I can correct me here.
No, that's
Okay.
totally true. That's totally true.
Yeah.
I just hate the fact, like, I literally hate the fact that people trying to apply like physical, logic to this game. Like in a game where you have giants, gigantic walls, dragons. They're trying to be like,
Hang on, wait, what? We have
yeah,
dragons.
yeah, of course, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
surprise, surprise, huh? So the thing is, like, guys, at the end of the day, this is a game. It's a tabletop fantasy game. So please, yeah, they have short bows. They look like short bows, but that doesn't mean that they have short range. Like,
Artistic license, it's a thing.
yeah,
To
like,
be
come
honest,
on.
if you look at, for example, if you look at the Baratheons, the Sentinels and the Rule of Faithful have nearly the same armor type. I think as far as I know, the armor, the Faithful wear is more protective than the one that the Sentinels wear, because it's just
They have
plates
helmets though. That's
okay, that's the point. But the body armor is way more protective on the Faithful side, and the Faithful
true.
still have the worst.
Yeah, just please
Defense
don't
saves,
apply
though.
historical facts to this game. It doesn't add up, guys. Okay, it doesn't make sense. Just please keep in mind this is a fantasy game. Weird stuff will happen. Stuff is supposed just to look cool. Okay, just to look cool. Because I don't want to play historical accurate game of Song of Ice and Fire, because that would be boring as hell. Because everyone would run around with some clubs and yeah, come on.
I think we've managed to go down the fantasy route, which is a perfect time to go talk about the next thing, right?
Oh yeah, because now this is the thing all the people in the world who play this game have been waiting for, right? This is the big thing, the big reveal here. Simon introduced the Targaryen Mother of Dragons box. Therefore, we got to see an additional version of Dany, which they said there will be 2 of them in the box, and of course her dragons. So sorry if I mess up their names. I only know Drogon so far. The other 2 guys are, well, I mean, Drogon is the biggest, baddest of them all. So yeah, Rhaegal and
Zerion.
Seagal. Okay. So yeah, we got our dragons and the final sculpts. Basically, the final sculpts. Previously, we only have seen one of them. That's the guy in the middle. Now we have the guy to the left and to the right here. No one actually knows which of them is Drogon and which of them is Viserion. And so far,
No, Drogon should be the one in the middle if we compare them with the next slide, but we don't know. If you knew the color, I think the right one is the green one. If we look at the next slide, and the left one is yellow
probably,
one or golden
sure.
one, but
no, you're right. You're right. If you compare it to the art, it makes sense. Yeah, you're right.
but I don't know which dragon has which color besides Drogon.
I'm guessing they've made them so that you can kind of paint them any way you want to a little bit. Because then obviously you can have alternatives. Otherwise, everyone's got exactly the same.
Make a pink dragon, guys. So I want to see a pink dragon.
Care Bear dragons. So I mean, talking about the sculpts is all well and good, but we've got some cards to talk about with these things. The only actual cards we saw for the whole stream, which, hooray! Woo!
Yay! Exactly.
I wanted to say that I love the sculpts and I'm really excited to paint them. I just started the Guardian because I wanted to play dragons at some point, and now I knew the sculpts. I knew that I think that they will be cool to paint, and yeah, okay. Next slide.
I will actually add to that. There is a little positive thing that's come out of this, being that the sculpts that they've ended up with for the dragons do look a little better than the thing that was teased at the end of the last reveal stream. And they do look a bit better than that original kind of like work in progress sculpt. Do I think they're good dragon sculpts? I think for the price point that we're talking about and the medium in which they're printed in the plastic, I think that they're absolutely fine.
Yeah.
There are better dragon sculpts out there, and there are but they're always more pricey.
Yeah,
they're
sure.
always,
You could
other
spend like
things.
hundreds of bucks on a very
well,
good
I
model.
literally have as well.
Yeah,
I've
CC.
got thousands of pounds probably in dragons.
Exactly.
How many
It's crazy.
dragons do you have?
Quite a
How
few.
many dragons do a man need? Exactly.
Well, and but,
Yes.
you know, in that regard, I can't complain that these. You know, I don't look at these and think, "Wow, they look amazing," but actually, for what I'm paying for and what they are good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
To be honest, I think the box is priced the same as every unit box.
Yeah.
Or hero box and so on.
Supposed to.
So what,
Yeah.
30 euros for you guys? About 30 quid? And you get 3 dragons?
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a tenner a dragon, and if you're not including Daenerys in that, that's
yeah.
not
Pretty good.
terrible.
I mean, you're getting cards as well, right? I mean,
Yeah, of course. You know the components, all of the components to play the game and
it's
everything.
kind of cool. But I maybe
trades,
I'm leaning myself out of the window here, but I might make the guess that this will not cost only 30 bucks, so this will be a little bit more expensive because they know that this is the goddamn freaking dragon box, and this will sell like hot cakes. I don't know. I have my,
I don't think so, to be honest.
As long as they print 1,000 million boxes of these, I think they could price it whatever they want.
Yeah, true.
If they print 100 of these, we get a Night's Watch fiasco again. Because you will. Because I can see people who don't even play Targaryens picking this box up.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I
they
think
need to create a lot.
Fabio also said he want two of these boxes, one just for the models to display them and one for playing them.
Yeah.
Okay, he also works for the company, so but
but okay.
I think it's right.
The rules.
Yeah, let's get to the facts about this box. So basically, they said that there will be two versions of Daenerys in there. One is her commander version that we will see on the next slide here, her cards, and she is basically a field commander, so not an NCU commander. But there will be also a second version, which is the Queen of Miran or Meereen, whatever you want to call it, version, and we don't know if this is just a simple NCU version of her, or maybe this will be an actual NCU commander version. That's up to speculation. But
yeah, we don't know anything about that.
About the second version, we don't know much. But this first version, we actually see her cards, and we got to see finally the cards for the dragon. So, which thing do you want to start with? I think the dragons, right? Because
the dragons,
yeah.
Everybody loves dragons, so
exactly.
Well, it matters as well. It matters for the.
So basically, up front we can see Drogon's card, and he has a movement of 6. He has a ranged and a melee attack, which are very weird because they only have some stars, but we will get to that in a second. Armor 4+, which is not very high for a dragon, but makes also sense because they are juvenile dragons. These are not, the adult forms. They are basically dragon teenagers. You could say something like that. And they are basically immune to morale, which also makes sense.
They have a no morale stat, so like the war
exactly.
machines.
They don't care. They're dragons. There's nothing in Westeros that is more frightening than a dragon, so they know that, and they don't care. And basically, here, their innate ability, the first innate ability, which is also a very weird part about these dragons, they have 8 wounds. They can perform a free maneuver when they activate, and they can ignore enemy models or models in general and terrain when moving. So basically, terrain that is dangerous or hindering, they don't care about it. They're dragons. They can fly just above the terrain.
Also, they can fly above impassable, which is also really
yes, exactly. Yeah. Palisades and stuff like that, they don't care about us all. They're dragons, they can fly, so yeah, go figure.
There is a little thing I would add on to this, in that there is some speculation that stakes are still going to be an issue and palisades are an issue. Are they allowed to stop on them and stop moving on them? They can definitely ignore them in terms of movement, but are they allowed to finish their move on top of them? That's a different question.
Sure.
Then, on the other hand, if a dragon ends its movement on some stakes, although they ignore the stakes for the movement purposes, if they then do an attack action on the stakes, they would
then will
take
Yeah.
damage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they will probably take the damage. Yeah.
There's going to be some there's already some FAQs that I think need to be addressed in terms of the way the rules work. Not because there's a misunderstanding, but just to clear up how that interaction will work.
To be honest, I think we need to look closely at the terrain rules, and I think it will sort out.
I hope to, but I also think that, you know, FAQs are not a device to clean up badly written rules. They are a device to, strangely enough, answer frequently asked questions.
Yeah, that's what they. Yeah, exactly.
This is a question that I can see asked a lot, even if we know what the rules are. You know,
True.
It's the same thing that winter is coming. Can you counterplot winter is coming? That had to be FAQ'd. Now, no one in their right mind who knows the rules would ever say no, you can't. You know, it's a fairly obvious interaction. The card hasn't resolved yet. You can play counterplot. But the problem is enough people asked that had to be FAQ'd.
Yeah. Also, I think it was also a time where it wasn't that clear in the rules, and I think the core rules got cleared up a bit.
Modified
and I looked at the terrain rules, and for the impassable, it's very clear. Units may never move over, but otherwise never move into, through, or end overlapping this terrain piece. And so, yeah, you can't, you ignore it while moving, but you don't ignore it when you end your move. So you aren't allowed to end on a palisade, on another impassable terrain piece. On the dangerous, I think, you will take the D3 +1 wound when you make a
attack
melee or range attack while in a stake terrain piece, which has dangerous. So I think the rules on that part are very clear.
Sure.
But let's not get into terrain rules here. Yeah, I think people, if you read a little bit into the terrain rules, you can figure this stuff out. But yeah, I totally understand where he is also coming from. That I'm also on the side of this FAQ needs to be updated way more frequently. Like, there have been questions in the past that are to this date still not officially answered and have been, asked hundreds of times. Every week there is this one question since the Scorpion got released, right? And you play Awful Yarvik. This mighty enhancement thing comes up every time. I recently just saw a new Reddit post about it. I'm like, oh my god, just add one sentence to this document and we're fine, okay? Can't be so hard, but yeah.
Back to the dragons.
Yeah. Okay. So now we come to their attack. We have actually Drogon's Blackfire. And they said that every dragon will have their own type of fire. Drogon got the Blackfire one. And it has
Jade Fire and Gold Fire.
Gold Fire, exactly.
Golden Fire are going to be the other two.
Sounds badass, actually. Golden Fire.
I think you can work out, in my opinion, potentially what each one might do, assuming that the dragons are very similar.
Okay.
And there's no reason to suggest they would be hugely different as things currently stand.
Yeah, the only thing which isn't really shown is the Blackfire rule, because we know all of them have the same movement and defense value, and all of them have the juvenile dragon rule, which is innate on all of them. So I think only the attack is the thing that changes.
Can I just point out as well, this is something very important.
Yeah.
The heart ability is next to Drogon's Blackfire.
Well, I was about to come to that one. Yeah, but you're totally right. Yeah, because one thing here, first of all, Blackfire has a short range. It is a melee and a ranged attack, so you basically can choose which kind of attack you want to perform here. Then it has vicious, and it also doesn't roll for to hit rolls. It basically hits all the time, which means dragons don't care about weaken tokens. The defender suffers D3 +3 wounds, and one enemy within short range of that attack or of that unit becomes panic. So you can even make the same unit panicked from this attack, which sounds amazing on paper, because not rolling for to hit, always dealing wounds, always causing panic checks. Yeah, it's insane. And then people are like, huh, I don't care. I can Walder this, right? Guys, there is a freaking innate heart next to the attack. So they have thought about this one, and it makes also sense because an old man in a chair can't intimidate a freaking dragon. Like,
this is beautiful, right? A free folk player, I always find it really weird that Walder could take away the club effect.
yeah, exactly.
I have no problem with like something existing in the game to make the Giants club attack not work, but being Walder, just what?
There is an explanation for it. It's not really good, but if you put Walder in front of a giant, and the giant is so kind and don't beat elderly people, so
wow,
that's a
brilliant,
plus for the giant.
I am so glad. I am so glad you're here right now. Anyway,
just adding some salt to the wound. Yeah, I got it.
Anyway, these dragons, right? Walder doesn't, can't do anything to these dragons, and that's really good. I think they fixed a problem before it was a problem. So superb effort. Do I think the dragons are strong based on these things? Yeah, I think they're going to be good. Might be overpriced, might be underpriced. We'll see. We don't know any of the costs, of course.
Yes.
Now, in terms of like looking at the other two dragons, Drogon has the D3 plus 3 wounds, and he makes an enemy within short range panicked.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the other two types of fire might not do the wounds. They might not even have vicious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But sundering is pointless.
Exactly.
Because you take the wounds. Crit blow is pointless. Precision is pointless.
Yes.
So in terms of other keywords that I might see on the other dragons, I don't imagine we will see anything other than vicious as things stand at the moment.
Yeah.
So if they have a keyword, it's vicious.
Yeah.
They might have a longer ranged attack. It might be long range rather than short range, but I doubt it. I would
please, no. Please,
yeah.
Oh God. No.
So they're going to be short range, they're going to be vicious. So there's two of the rules pretty much covered, generally speaking. And then they all don't roll to hit because none of them have got the roll to hit signs. They've all got that star, and they've all got the star in the number of attacks they roll. Yes. So it's going to be straight to their attacks if they do damage. That's an important thing. If their attacks do damage, they'll be straight to wounds.
Yep.
Because they might have dragons that don't do any damage when they attack, which is fair enough. And
it's also, sorry to interrupt you, it's also brilliant. Like, if you think about martial superiority, right? It doesn't work. It just simply doesn't work because you subtract -2 dice. Huh, I don't roll dice in the first. Joke's on you.
You do lose some of the abilities of the attack, though, don't you? Or no, you can never lose innate.
You can't lose innate.
You can't lose innate, yeah.
So they're basically immune to any form of ability blanking.
Which makes sense, I might add.
Yep.
The only way to stop a dragon doing what it does is, strange enough, killing it.
There's one way to delay it at least, and that is when you play Cohen and you put Cohen on the dragon. It's like, Cohen goes to the battlefield, just gets eaten by the dragon, and the dragon is distracted because Cohen doesn't taste that well, I guess.
How does Tyrion work? The orders to the dragon got delayed?
Yeah, basically.
that will work, yeah.
Dragon, over there, and the dragon's just like, no, I'm gonna scratch my shoulders.
Ask me again later, man. Yeah. Go ahead.
So anyway, going back to where I was going to say about the abilities, right?
Yeah, sure.
If they do damage, which, again, people always focus on damage and healing, and I know that's a mechanic. We are playing a war game after all.
Yeah.
The objectives don't necessarily require you to kill things, so it's possible that these dragons might not do auto damage when they attack. They might do other effects. But anyway, the obvious thing to say, you've got 3 dragons. And what other thing does exist 3 of in the game? And we know that Drogon deals with one of those 3. It's a token. So is the Jade and Golden Dragons going to do the D3 plus 3 wounds and give out a weakened, and the D3 plus 3 wounds and give out a vulnerable? And you have ways of generating all 3 tokens from the 3 different dragons, and that's the only thing that separates the 3 of them. I don't think that's enough flavor, personally.
Oh,
I have an own take on this one. I got the same idea initially, like you. I
Mhm.
think it makes sense. You're right. But I was like, what if one of those dragons doesn't add any form of token, but instead has some sort of splash attack, like he's like breathing his fire in a cone, multiple enemies, but doesn't hit. Doesn't do so many wounds as Drogon does on a single unit. Like he can spread his wounds across a couple of units in front of him in his front arc or something like that. Just trying to make them more distinct from each other, just giving them a little bit more flavor. Yeah, but other than that, I could also see giving out a weakened token. Vulnerable, I don't know. I don't know if
I think if the
could also
talk
work. Yeah.
mechanic would be true, I think there is enough separation because Drogon is the dragon who will do the most damage because he is panicked and can increase the damage, at least from the panic test. Yeah, it will likely fail if all of them have wishes, but yeah, you can reroll the D3. Also, you can reroll one of the dice or both of them if they pass. They have wishes, so it's not that likely, but it still can happen. So I think he's more of the damage dragon, and if the other guys deal out weakened and vulnerable, the weakened one is more of the supportive dragon, I guess, who can protect your own units. And
Which would be the golden one, in my opinion.
maybe, yeah.
And then the green one being the vulnerable, right?
Yeah, and the
Acid?
vulnerable one is more like I attack first, and another unit would go in there and finish it because they have a vulnerable token, and yeah,
And
nearly
the
half
idea
dead
of
or
acid,
something like this. Yeah,
Yeah.
the idea of acid like burning the armor as well from like the green dragon.
yeah,
Because dragons are always, the color matters, like the color is relevant to dragons.
Yeah.
And the color has, generally speaking, an innate change on the style of fire that they breathe. And we've seen it before. Blue dragons typically frosty, white dragons as well. Black dragons are always the biggest and the scariest.
True.
Green dragons have always been acid dragons. Red dragons are fire dragons. These are all like tropes that exist within dragon lore in fantasy in general. So, is this something that I believe that G.R.R. Martin, Michael Chanel, the designers, would stick to? I can very much believe that they would stick to those kind of tropes. Even if it's just a little bit in terms of like the flavor of a card or the flavor of a tactics a token that they give out. Because these are things of well-established tropes as well. They're not just like one or two things do this. They are across everything and have been for the last 25 years or more.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But I think that's interesting still.
True,
I think the difference between the three is actually subtly more important than people realize, because obviously Drogon's the best for damage, as you said. But the other two, which people forget, this is a way of getting 3 tokens out on the board. In theory, if everything I'm saying is true, this is a way of getting 3 different tokens out on the board.
Yeah,
is there anything in the game that requires you to have 3 different tokens on the board at one time?
Yeah.
Secret mission
Objective. There's 4 victory points right there. So
yeah, that's true. You're right. Yeah. That's kind of.
You are very mobile and can attack everything. Yeah, that's really interesting at these missions. Yeah.
I see this, like, again, people look at it from like a killing perspective, which is not what the game is actually about. I can see these dragons fulfilling the roles that you want to fulfill within certain missions and within certain scenarios and game modes. So, I'm not saying that, obviously this is all speculation around them giving out tokens and having the same attack, but it fits. In my book, it fits.
Yeah.
But I also think it could do completely other things. I think the Golden Dragon, for example, he could be like a Healy type thing. It doesn't really play into the mythos of Game of Thrones, really. But he could heal wounds to a unit that was in combat with the unit he just burnt alive. Things like that.
Yeah. What I also find very interesting is, the dragons can do damage, and they can do a lot of damage, because if you do the math behind it and look at averages, what other units need to roll on attack dice, and so on and so on, to do the same amount of damage the dragon does. The dragon damage is pretty high, I would say.
Well, the average is 5, right?
The
The average
is
damage
5.
is 5. And the
Plus
average
a panic
attack,
test.
the average attack will be less than 5 because the average number of dice is like 7 or 8. And
Yeah, and
assuming
also
it's
you
5
have
plus.
also you have a defense save after this, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So it's a higher damage potential than most units have in the game. And if units have a damage potential that high, they have specific requirements to them, and most often it's tied to luck. Okay, not on Starks, but there are some combos there. But don't get in the rabbit hole, Yannick, don't. But if you just do the math behind it, a dragon can't kill a unit with one single attack. If you assume that you roll always a 3 on the damage, so you get 6 wounds initially from the attack, but then there are 6 wounds left, and your opponent can fail a panic test, and even if he fails with a 3, then there are still 2 wounds left, so the dragon can't one-shot a unit, which I think is a good thing. Maybe
Definitely.
the potential damage is a bit high, with 10 models wiped out completely if you're really lucky. But at least that you aren't able to one-shot a unit, and there's, I think, no way that you can increase the damage of the dragons with cards or something like this, because they're straight out.
You say that you can't increase the damage of a dragon, not from a single attack, but I feel like this is a very good point to point out Daenerys's first card,
okay, that's
Dracarys, which is whenever Daenerys's unit activates, a friendly Drogon, Rhaegal, or Viserion unit within short range may make a free attack action, giving out literally a completely free attack to a dragon with the use of a tactics card. Like, sure, you can't burn them in one turn with one activation, but the dragons are still scary. Being able to burn things twice in a row, that's dangerous, man.
Yeah, I think.
But something. Can I go?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
sure.
I wasn't sure if I just interrupted you. One thing we should still consider, I think we all agree that the dragons are very powerful, at least what we see when we base everything around Drogon. And I think with that much power, they will have a very high price tag. And if you consider that we want to take the dragons, at best all of them, if we play the Mothers of Dragons commander, then we don't have much points left for units, for a unit where you can put her. And also you still want 2 or 3 NCUs, and I think then you will have really problems with the points because you don't have much points left. To build an army besides the dragons, if you want all of them.
Yeah, it's hard because Targaryens are known as from a meta perspective. Targaryens are known for being relatively expensive, having a relatively low activation count compared to many other factions. Night's Watch is the only one that really sits at the same kind of level. And Targaryens, these dragons might be expensive, and as a result, they don't increase or benefit that activation cap limit. But yes, I don't know. To me, right now, these dragons have got to be a minimum of 4 points, and probably a maximum. I probably wouldn't play them for 7 or 8. I'd have to think about it a little bit more, assuming they're all like Drogon.
What?
Yeah, I wouldn't pay any more than 8 points for a dragon. I wouldn't pay 8 points for one of these dragons.
Okay, I was thinking of 8 points minimum, and
Yeah, I actually as
more,
well. I was like
more
8 up to
9 or
10.
10. Yeah, 9 or 10
Nah.
points for them.
The
I
fact,
wouldn't.
the, fa- the,
I
fa-
wouldn't do it.
the thing is,
because-
Mickey, you also have to consider that these guys can be combined with the tactic deck of the Targaryens, which allows a dragon in one round to perform multiple maneuvers, retreats, whatever. So these guys, if they even cost like 8 or 9 points, can do so much work. Like even right now, Targaryen players have figured out that if they play, this is the sad thing here, an elite, Targaryen faction works better than a Night's Watch elite faction because their tactic deck allows them to perform multiple actions in one round. So a unit of, let's say, Unsullied Swordmasters can do tons and tons and tons of work for you just with those basic tactic cards. And now you have those dragons, which are, in my personal opinion, an answer to all those defensive factions. Like, for example, if you're fighting against Baratheons, they will just struggle against these guys. And if you have cards in your deck like Hit and Run, charge in with your dragon, deal out of wounds, then you have Vicious on top of that. Baratheons don't have so many tools to increase their morale, except for Renly. There are a couple of cards in there, yes, but that's it. Then you're just jumping out again, no counter charge, no Hours is the Fury. It's gonna be insane. And then
I am gonna
Yep.
point out something you've forgotten though from a list building perspective. Like,
Yep.
if we think of it as a 40-point list that you're making, and these guys are 8 points apiece, that's
Yeah.
24 points if you take all three.
Yeah.
At 24 points apiece, you would then hope to have a unit for Daenerys to go in. At the moment, if we
Yeah.
stick just to faction-specific stuff, not considering neutrals for the moment, faction-specific stuff means you have to take a unit of Unsullied. That means that you're now at 34 points. You've got 6 points left.
Yes, and that
You actually can't take anything for 6 points. There is nothing in the game that you could take for 6
no.
points.
You just let's just. I don't know if they're 8, 9, or 10 points, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm approaching this because I think that they want you to, if you want to wield all 3 dragons, you have to take some backdraw here. You want to play all those 3 dragons, fine, but you can't field any additional powerful units because those dragons by themselves, with all the tactic cards that they have, and I mean, if we look at Dracarys, it's another free action. It's ridiculous. Like, if you look at the basic deck of the Targaryens, like almost 50% of their cards allow units to perform additional actions. And yes, those are retreats and stuff like that, but it doesn't change the fact that it's an action. And as I said before, if you're, for example, fighting with your dragons against a unit of Veterans of the Watch, they can't even counterattack you. Like, defensive units will completely be annihilated by dragons. And I think Targaryens can then start to build 2-list formats where they have one very offensive, very mobile army list with like a Dothraki horde with like 5 riders and stuff, screamers or something like that along the lines. And you can build a second list with a couple of dragons in there to just destroy defensive enemy lists. Because right now,
Dracarys requires the unit to be in short range of Daenerys, though. So
yeah, that's true.
So it's not a free action that's directly free, and we don't know what Dragon's Flight is, but my guess is Dragon's Flight is going to be a free maneuver for a dragon.
Yes, exactly.
That would make sense. Yes, I agree. You need to be putting a lot of work in with these dragons if they're expensive. But actually, if they're too expensive, if you're talking 8, 9, 10 points, you actually price yourself out of the game because 8 wounds to one thing with a 4+ armor save is very easy. Like, there are units in the game that are dedicated to be able to do that quite easily. And things like an unhurt unit of Berserkers, 6 points, or 7 points, I should say. An unhurt unit of Berserkers could kill a dragon in one charge. Straight up.
Of course. Yeah, I'm not
any bonuses, without anything.
I'm not arguing on this part, but you can also make the argument that Berserkers can charge like almost anything. So yes, dragons will probably die from a charge, but at the same time, Targaryens have the tools in their arsenal to even outmaneuver Starks. They are even faster than them.
Swift advance. You literally cannot stop yourself. And all of the cavalry, Tully Cavaliers and Knights of Castle Rock, chew up dragons. Just chew them up.
Yes, of course, but they also have to be in range for this charge. They have to make this charge. The enemy has to invest cards.
But if you're doing any damage to me, you have to be within 6. So you are in range. So if I care about you because you're a threat, you're in range for me to be able to kill you, because my strike distance from my cavalry is much larger than the strike distance that you have. Your strike distance on a dragon is a 6-inch move and then a 6-inch attack. My strike distance is a minimum of a 5-inch move, followed by a 5+ march. So my base is already 10, and I get a d6 on top. Like cavalry doesn't care about these units, and that's the problem. So you can't price these at like 8, 9, 10 points, because all of the 8 and 9 point cavalry out there.
Sure. But I would also make the argument that you can't price them below 7, because everyone would include dragons in their army, and they would just, as I said before, fuck up defensive armies.
What?
Yeah.
When I can just get a bit in the argument there.
Go
on. I think Fabio or Michael. Oh, I don't know. One of them said that the dragons will work best with the mothers of dragons commander, and another army concept they won't work that good. I don't know what it means, but maybe there's something there which helps them to build a real only dragon army lists. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe some sort of price reduction, maybe when you have Daenerys as your commander or something along the lines.
Maybe it's just that the Daenerys commander cards work for the dragons, right? That's what they do. They make the dragons better, which we already know.
True.
But this is the issue. If these dragons are 10 points apiece or 9 points apiece, I'm sorry, but they're terrible. Like, each individual dragon can put in a lot of work, but I'm sorry, you can run 3 points of Unsullied infantry already for that kind of points crossed, and you can probably get roughly the same, if not more, out of them, because they have more wounds. Their morale is so low that it basically half the time doesn't matter. You don't need tactics cards to make them better and give them free actions. And they are dealing roughly the same amount of damage on average with precision and 10 attack dice. Like, there's very little that they attack that's going to be taking less than averagely 5 wounds. Only a 3+ armor is going to be better, because they will hit with nearly every attack on a 2+. So if this is costed at 9, Unsullied swordsmen are currently probably as powerful, except maybe the movement rules. And if that's all you're paying for is slightly better movement restrictions and slightly better things in that regard, then what happens is the Unsullied Swordsmasters disappear off the face of the earth, because the only reason you're taking those is for a unit that's a little bit more tanky, marginally, and that can take attachments. The attachments are only good if they make the unit better than the dragon. And if the attachments are good enough to make them better than the dragon, why are you taking the dragon? From a balance perspective,
because the dragon is faster. You made actually the point in your explanation there. Dragons have free mobility. And that's another free action that you have on the battlefield. It's another way to outmaneuver slow enemies. It's another way to just fuck with them around on the maneuver side of games. Like we said earlier, this game is all about mobility.
Why would you ever take Dothraki veterans?
Yeah, that's a whole topic of itself.
We don't take.
You see the problem? These are not costed, or at least in terms of like looking at the way you're thinking about it, the way these things work mean that they're objectively better than what already exists, and thus the other things that already exist don't get played. You only play those for a thematic point. And if they're not as powerful as things that already exist, they have to be reduced in points cost to make them playable. You either have to have this themed army, I want to run a Dothraki horde, or I want to run an Unsullied army, or I want to run dragons. But in a tournament setting, and in the setting that we see, people are going to want to play what they think is best. And if that is dragons, then that's dragons. But then rip the Dothraki veterans, rip the Unsullied. We haven't even talked about Unsullied pikemen yet, who are believed to be very expensive as well.
Yeah.
For me, personally, I just can't see how the dragons are supposed to fit in at a high points cost, even if they are good enough to be warranting a high points cost, because all you do is screw over Targaryen players even more in their list building choices.
Yeah, but
that's an issue for me.
That's list building so far. We haven't taken into consideration that we don't know the point cost of the Hakar. We don't know what the free men will cost. Like, they're supposed to be like their cheap activations, like the conscripts for the Night's Watch. So there are a lot of possibilities still on the horizon for the Targaryens to comprehend this, activation disadvantage. But as I said earlier, I think they don't really struggle from activation disadvantage, because yes, they have lesser activations than most factions, but they compensate it with tons and tons and tons of actions. Like, it's ridiculous. I think, for example, in my personal opinion, Barristan Selmy right now, by far one of the best commanders in the entire game. His cards are insane. Like, in combination with hard-hitting cavalry, his tactical regroup, amazing. Free retreat, you charge into the enemy flank, just bonkers with all those Targaryen cards. It's a free action again. Then you have Legendary Boldness. Again, a free attack action here. So if you look at their basic deck and combine this with all their mobility shenanigans and their units so far, they already are not in a bad spot. Like, people have actually managed to figure them out and to play them effectively. And yes, to be fair, they're a very new faction, and they will not be on top of the common tournament events. That's totally okay, because, as I said, they're very, very new and very, very fresh. But it just leads to the fact that if they get even more options, they will become like a powerhouse unit. And I personally think that right now, even if their units are very pricey, they make up for it with their very good tactics deck, with their tons and tons of actions. Illyrio Morpartis, for example, their NCU, that's another activation on the battlefield. And yes, list building right now with them is kind of very limited. Yeah, that's totally true. There's no denying that. But this can change. Like, as I said, Dothraki Hakar are coming. The Freemen will come. And I also heard that, for example, the Pit Fighters, which are the gladiators basically in Marine, will also be an infantry alternative to the Unsullied. So you don't have to play this entire Targaryen elite thing. You can actually play a normal list that's more like focused around mobility and has some Stark aspects in there. Yeah, but I think I just fear that if they price them too low, they will become a standard and no-brainer. So everyone will pick them. Everyone will play them with. I mean,
I completely agree on that front. I completely agree. You can't make them too cheap.
Yeah.
But as things stand, like, looking at balance and looking at the themes and things like that, like, this is Simon's question to answer, really. What on earth are they trying to do with the Targaryens? Because if they make them 9-10 points like you're suggesting, and even 8,
I would go actually for 8. That's my initial thought for 8 points. Yeah.
For these kind of points cost, all you do is you basically price out all of the other things. Like, what you're saying is you either run a dragon army, or you run an Unsullied army, or you run a Dothraki army. That's what they're saying. Yeah. They actually reduce your list building options massively, because it's a bit like the whole Renly Stannis thing, right? If you go Renly side, there's realistically at the moment only really one way to build the Renly side armies. Yes, you can change the commander. Yes, you can fiddle around with different units, but it's all the same style. The Stannis side, there's arguably 2 at the moment, but only one of them's competitively viable in the Roose side of things, and running that side, and it's usually just unit spam. And so what you've ended up doing is, yes, you've created 2 independent lists and 2 independent sides of list building, but the lists that do well, generally speaking, are very similarly themed and very similar builds. When I say similar, they might even have 10 points that are different, but they're similar enough in that what they're replacing those points with is a very similar style thing. They're not completely different spend of 10 points. the issue here with the Targaryens is they've now got 3 routes to go down, and if they dabble in one of those routes, it's very hard to then dabble in any of the others as well, without just dabbling in everything and being not very good at anything. I think that's my issue with this style of the list building side of things. I want to be able to run a dragon with my Dothraki Horde, like as a support tool, and I think I'll be able to do that, which is brilliant. But I'll be pricing out like actually having that many units on the field because the dragon's so expensive. And then what I've got is a dragon with some horses running around with him. I haven't got a dragon supporting the Horde. And I think, for me, that's one of the biggest criticisms I've got of Targ building at the moment. And I've spent a lot of time trying to build 30-point lists of Targs because I drew Targs in the 30-point list tournament. And I spent a lot of time looking at lists and how I can craft them and do what I want to achieve. I ended with 2 things I'm not overly happy with, but for 40 points, the options are a little bit more. But nearly every single faction has more options with those 40 points than they open up. And the Targaryens don't actually have more options. 10 extra points, realistically, for the Targaryens. Unless you're going to take Cutthroats, that's a unit. Like, one unit for 10 points. And that's the way that the game is themed at the moment for Targs. That you have to get a lot of work out of those units. You do. And the Dragons might be able to do that. They might be able to do that. But with the way that the game is played and what is currently favoured within the game at the moment, with the likes of heavy-hitting cavalry and units that can do free manoeuvres when they want to and move around and basically charge when they want to at whatever distances they want to, these kinds of units exist and are powerful at the moment. And the Dragons is like, they're just terrible against those things. And that's why it's got me sad, a little bit. Because I think the Dragons are good. I'm not saying the Dragons aren't good. I'm just saying at a high expensive point cost. I just don't think you'll actually see them competitively played, which is a shame.
To be honest, I think that there will be a way to balance it out, and maybe that's something which I mentioned earlier, that we only knew pieces about the stuff which is coming in the future. If it's just the models or if it's just the front side of a card, like dragons are now, we can speculate over it, and maybe there's something new which makes them playable in both kind of lists.
Sure.
And we didn't see it yet, and maybe that's the problem which we have at the moment, and I think that's something which is really cool.
Damn you, Simon.
This is it, right?
Show us the fucking backside of the card.
But to be honest,
we can only analyze what we've got in front of us, and we have to analyze it within what already exists in the game.
Yeah.
We can't say, oh, if they get a cheap activation, if Harakars are cheap. If Harakars are cheap, that changes the analysis completely. But most people seem to be thinking Harakars around 6 points, which I disagree with. Some people saying that they're 3 or 4. I think they're nuts. 5 to me sounds like the obvious point cost for that kind of unit.
5.
And I don't see how you can make it more expensive without just compounding the Targaryen problem. And at 5 points, that object on the game board is exactly the same as like taking Cutthroats, because Cutthroats are one of the most ridiculously overpriced units in the game at 5 points. And anyone who disagrees with me doesn't understand how the game works, in my opinion. Cutthroats are just a very, 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 very good 5-point unit. And right now, you have to compete with other factions' units and the neutral units specifically at the various different points costs. And is this better than a unit of Stormcrow Dervishes? I actually think that these dragons are better than a unit of Stormcrow Dervishes. Are they that much better than a unit of Stormcrow Dervishes? Probably not.
Really? You can't weaken them. You can't panic them.
Sure.
You can't be blanked. Really?
Sure.
They are even faster because they have a free movement.
Yeah. They are better. I'm not saying they're not better. They are better. But are they hugely better?
I think so. I personally think so. But
maybe 8 points,
I think
that's anymore.
That's something brilliant Simon did there. I think it's a very controversial unit, and we already seen that with you both discussing this unit and how you will implement him in the list and so on. And I think that it will be really interesting to see them on the battlefield, because I can see scenarios and matchups where they work perfectly fine, and I can also see matchups where the dragons just won't work because the list of my opponent will counter them, or they have cards which will damage them, and so on and so forth. And I think it's that the dragons won't be like a tool you can just throw into the fight and they will handle this. I think they are more like a tool where you need to be very precise with your movement, and if you do it right, you have a devastating effect on the enemy lines. But if you do it wrong, and it just need to be a small mispositions, then the dragons will die. And I think that's a really nice concept of having there. And I think that's also one of the things why you both have so different opinions on them, because you both see different scenarios and how they will work there. And I think that's genius on them, that you have that much discussion just around one unit and how it will be performing and so on.
Sure thing. Now imagine they would have released other cards, like here.
Yeah.
Just one card and could rant about it all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is kind of go back to the point, we don't know enough information about the rest of things coming out to make these really, really super informed decisions. We're only going off speculation. One thing I will say though, and I think this is super relevant, right? We are speculating a lot about these things, and we talked a long time. About speculations. But I will say, the things that are powerful within the meta right now, and you've got to look at the meta right now. You can't just say these things are going to be good, because obviously the meta matters.
Yeah.
But the things that are deemed powerful are things that move a lot and have lots of options. We have Free Folk and we have Stark up there. Yep. Targaryens, the only reason they haven't done better, in my opinion, they have the movement thing down, but they haven't had options because they haven't been able to do, like, rotate around the board in the same way. They don't have the units to do the rotation. You can't even do like Mongolian Cantabrian circles with Outriders in front of your units because they just get caught every time. All of these different ideas and things do function in the Targaryens, but they just don't function as effectively as these Alpha Strike type attacks that dominate the meta. And if Alpha Strike is important, and you've just told me that dragons can't kill a unit in one attack ever, then as a Free Folk player, I go, cool, that's 2 dragon attacks. That unit over there is 2 dragon attacks. That unit there is 2 dragon attacks. Hang on, I've got 10 units on the board, or maybe it's not 10, but maybe I've got 8 units on the board. That's 16 dragon attacks. Cool. How can I win the game before the dragons do 16 attacks? And if that's the game, like, for me, the dragons just don't have a place, because they're gonna absolutely destroy Baratheons. They're gonna feast on Baratheons. Yeah. They are gonna feast on Lannisters. They might even have a very good time of destroying Night's Watches, but probably not, because the bolt throwers outrange them, and they can.
No one's playing that thing. Come on.
Yeah, I know, right? but crossbowmen also exist.
But also we get a modification on the bolt thrower, which we also don't know.
No, exactly. You can throw out stakes as well, and we already discussed that the dragons don't like charging into the stakes. So all of these little things, I can see how the factions can deal with these things. I think that's what I'm looking at it. I'm looking at how can you deal with the dragon, because we know what the statistics of the dragon are. We don't know its points cost, but how effective and easy is it to deal with the dragon? And the answer is, for some factions, yeah, it's not a problem. Like, we can deal with this. It's just like a souped up wolf. And that's what I would look at it in Free Folk terms. It's just a bit of a bigger wolf. And so trappers, super useful. Dire, super useful. But in terms of the factions that already struggle with those things in the meta, they're going to struggle even more. And we're going to see more Roose Axel lists come out from Baratheons, so they can just drop tokens onto the dragons. Sure, they don't affect them, but you can still expend them to do auto wounds. And you see,
that's vicious.
True. But you can see my point in terms of where the meta is right now. These dragons fit very comfortably into what is already doing well in the meta.
Yep.
And if they are more expensive than the current meta options of achieving those things, then all they'll do is they'll slot nicely in above those kind of factions, and they just won't touch the likes of Stark and Free Folk in terms of efficiency.
Yeah.
That is the, like, in terms of a statistical analysis of how they would fit in, that's what I would say. And there's actually, I mean, aside from making these guys ridiculously cheap, like 3 or 4 points, which would be broken, you know,
just spend 9 of them, even if you can only
take 3.
Yeah.
But you see, you can start to see how the picture builds up.
Yeah.
The release shouldn't be trying to combat the meta. I'm not saying it should combat the meta.
No.
But it very much plays into the meta that we've got, and it doesn't challenge the current winners of the meta if the points cost is that high.
Yeah, but to be honest, until the dragons get released, there is the potential that the meta will change.
Of course.
From something or another.
Definitely, of course.
That we also need to take into account. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what the future will bring.
Definitely. And you know, I think it's good to see the dragons as well, like in terms of rules, obviously.
Yeah.
want to see them more cards, you know, want to see them out on the field, loads of things like that. But yeah, I think we just need to wait and see.
Yeah.
We really need to wait and see.
Yeah.
And Simon needs to show us point costs.
Yes.
Point
exactly.
Costs are arguably more important than abilities. In fact,
totally.
Yeah, probably more important than anything. The points cost.
Yep.
Does a unit cost this? I mean, show a 6-point unit to Baratheons. They don't care what its abilities are. Show them a 6-point unit, and they might start. You know, is it better than Sentinels? We don't know. We don't have a clue what it does. But is it better than Sentinels? Maybe. So we might take it.
Yeah, but it's not gonna be very hard to be better than Sentinels right now. So.
Well.
Poor guys. Well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, the only thing left to say is let's hope for next week and the Asia Expo. Let's hope that they will reveal finally some cards, show more content, real facts, maybe even subjects to change, but doesn't matter. Just show us some more cards because, yeah, it just adds more hype to the game. Like, I think of all the reveals right now that have been shown, dragons are now the thing that people are talking about. Not because only they're dragons, but because we have rules.
Definitely.
Everything else died down quite quickly, actually. But the dragon speculation and tactics are still going on. And that's totally understandable because people want to know how they can fit them into their lists.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, so that was the last slide that we have seen at the expo.
Yeah, we are talking about this over 40 minutes or something like.
Yeah.
Just
I'm sorry.
slide.
That's mainly me.
No, that's totally okay because
to be honest, all of our viewers, or at least the ones who listen to us,
they're actually expecting us to talk so long.
It's not that uncommon that we talk that much.
Always the same thing. We are like, this is gonna go fast, right? We only just have a couple of things to discuss. Yeah. No.
7 hours later.
Yeah.
I think when we did the Baratheon podcast, we said for each for the non-loyalty stuff we need 1 hour, for the one loyalty stuff we need an hour, for the other loyalty stuff we need an hour, and I think we ended up with 9 hours in total or more.
Something along the lines. Yeah. That was.
So,
yikes.
Yikes.
Oh well.
Right then.
Okay, so I think we are at the end here. There's nothing more actually to discuss. As we said, guys, tune in next week at the Asia Expo. Ben from the guild, from Blitz Minis, will also host a Q&A, which is kind of exciting. So tune in, ask some questions. Ask them maybe about stuff like the Stone Thrower and the actual meta. So are they going to change anything about it? Because this is something as well that they haven't mentioned at all. I can understand it, but they haven't mentioned anything in regards to the balance of the current game state. So hopefully they will address it as well next week. I doubt it, but I would be very happy if they did. That they actually just acknowledge the fact that yes, right now there are problems out there. We know that they exist and we're trying to solve them. Because officially we haven't got any response in that regard. So we're just basically hoping for a 1.5.5 or something like that to, get the game on the right tracks again.
Yeah.
But yeah. I would say if you don't have anything to add, maybe you want to promote something, maybe you've forgotten someone.
I'm all right. I think, we mentioned the stats. God, remember that when we mentioned the stats builder?
Oh, yeah.
I don't. So yeah, keep remembering to head over to the stats builder. So that's the Song of Ice and Fire, acronym ASOIAF-Stats.com/builder. Keep heading over there. Keep making lists. You'll see the functionality of that change over the next week or so as we add more things that you can do with it. And watch out for our integration with the TTS stuff. That's going to be really fun and really useful. And also with all the tournament stuff that's going on. So yeah. Aside from that, check out the content. Check out the guild drop, which is happening today, tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I think today, because I think I need to edit this at least one day and render it, which takes half a day or something like this.
Just I talk.
Oh well. Okay, guys. So I would say we are at the end line here. So yeah, Mickey, thanks a lot for being with us here for all your input. It was very cool.
Right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So guys, we are at a close here. So thanks for listening. If you managed to sit through like 3.5 hours with us, mad respect. Yeah. Tune in next time when we will discuss the Asia Expo reveals, hopefully with more cards. And yeah, until then, see you around. Bye.
See you.
Bye.